claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
If a generalized black woman is doing this and being this, that is that is irresponsible.
No,
when you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
Showing me,
black and proud. Claim your Africanness, black
because
and proud.
I think that if
when you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
As a page,
what is the status of people with half FBA?
I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
That's why I was laughing, because I am
claim your Africanness.
I'm not saying the framework doesn't do a thing, but
become a part of it.
We've been
embrace
forward to black men
become a part
masters,
of it. Embrace
in
it.
Control. We
become a part of it.
Only
embrace it.
That those one of the best stories I've ever heard.
Embrace it. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind
that
back.
mental growth takes place. You've been misled by leadership, for instance, that think that you can consume.
When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. A criminal society criminalizes all of its constituents. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when the leadership of a nation lies to that nation, when it deceives that nation, when it miseducates that nation and falsifies facts, it falsifies the consciousness of the people who inhabit that nation. And when it falsifies their consciousness, it recruits those of its people into its criminality. So whether you know it or don't know it, you're a part of the game.
So family, let me know if you can hear me now. I appreciate for you jumping on and letting me know. Please give me a 1 in the chat if I can be heard now. And we'll get back on track. So let me know. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me now. All right, family. I thank you for all of that. So again, I was starting off by saying welcome to this broadcast, and I'm just going to kind of truncate what I said. But again, today's discussion is, are the sisters hating on Cheyenne Bryant? Is it really that simple? And again, I'm just going to read what I have here to kind of set up the conversation here. This is not a clips page. It's not a hot takes page. It's not a quick clip factory. The specialty here is long form conversation where people can agree, disagree, reflect, and build. Short clips may come later for people who do not have the time or appetite for slower content, but this space is for the full meal. As a therapist, pause, silence, reflection, time, and hearing another person's position, perspective on any matter is essential. The work is not to react as quickly as possible. The work is to slow down enough to understand what really is happening beneath the surface. So that's what Dr. DAW does. You know what I mean? It's not for everybody. And I'm saying that because it's one thing to just put out clips to get views and polish them up and do all these type of things. But I treat conversations with Dr. DAW as a conversation similar to what you will even have in academic spaces, you know what I mean? Or communal spaces or study groups or what have you. So I want to hear from you as well. So I put here, after sitting with this situation, I'm talking about the Cheyenne Bryant thing, because a lot has been going on. A lot has been said. There's a lot of misinformation happening out here. There's so much stuff that is wrong out here. But again, as I was saying earlier, before when I was muted, when I come before you, please note that you may not like how I say a thing, or I might not choose the words, or maybe I choose the words to fit you. Whatever it is, my goal is to unify or bring unity to the Black community. And again, I call this Conversations with Dr. DAW, because what I notice is that we struggle with communication. It's not just in our intimate relationships. It's not just in our romantic relationships. The conversation problem is due to a lack of skill, emotional regulation, and all types of things. But if we are to win, if we are to heal as a collective and individuals, we must hone in the ability to communicate. And if we don't learn how to communicate, any form of communication or perspective or difference of opinion begins to feel like an argument. Yeah, and lots of us struggle with that. And I'll be honest, a lot of us, male, female, whoever, we struggle with communicating when the person is sharing their perspective. And I've even been looking at this Cheyenne Bryant character, this sister, and I've been studying it a little bit more recently, because I was introduced to her by way of a few clips, which were pretty impressive to some degree. But after looking at more footage and how she engages with others in more long form content, it is clear that she can dish it well. She can dish it well. She can read you. She can read you and she can give it, but she struggles with taking it. And in fact, after looking at much of what's going on, she's stumbling upon her words. She's lost. She's actually disclosing things, the very things that she's fighting and arguing against, she is participating in to a great degree. So I want to explore this idea again of the sisters hating on Cheyenne Bryant. And we can add the brothers in there too. But again, of the sisters hating on Cheyenne Bryant, is it really that simple? And I think this, what I'm speaking to is not just about Cheyenne Bryant. The words of people hating if they point out things is part of a greater and larger conversation that goes on in our community quite too often. This is not a gossip show. The effort here is to analyze larger patterns of harm, confusion, projection, beauty politics, credential politics, and communal fragmentation. There are figures who function as major funnels of confusion and harm in the community. And while Bryant is still emerging in some ways, there are frightening similarities between her style, her movement, and those of others that I spoke to many years ago that are very similar to those of like a Umar Johnson. I know, don't come for me too fast, family. But when I have studied a bit more of Cheyenne Bryant, to me, she is the feminine counterpart. I'm talking about in style, in grace, in articulation, in the leveraging of credentials as Umar Johnson. Now, the difference I would say is Umar, for the most part, from my understanding, I've never challenged his credentials. Now, how he uses them, that is something different. And we'll talk about that too. How he uses or how he articulates them or how he manipulates the way that he articulates himself as a doctor of psychology. Who does that? And who do you see imitating that? A doctor of psychology. Now, the first person I heard say I'm a doctor of psychology was Umar Johnson. Now I hear Cheyenne Bryant saying the same thing. And that's very intentional. So you have to also know that the dear sister will study. And she knew, and she knows from, this is just a conceptualization, I could be wrong, that Umar came under scrutiny about his own degrees. People challenge Umar and say he didn't have any degrees. I think, and I could be wrong again, is that what she did is say, how did Umar respond? And if we have to be really honest, Umar responded very similarly. So Cheyenne Bryant said, okay, I'm going to take a page out of Umar's book. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. Cheyenne Bryant said, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. It's between me and the creator, God, or whatever. Umar, very similarly, says he doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. And that's what has happened. Now, I've never, ever really in a real strong way thought that Umar didn't have the degrees. Now, I could tell he didn't have a license just by the way he utilizes words and the way he promotes himself. Now, to the general public, it's very easy to get confused. And even to those of us who are operating in the fields, in the field, psychotherapy, mental health, psychology, counseling, social work, clinical social work, we often can get confused because I watched some interviews as of late. I mean, some shows, and there's other professionals who are maybe they're just being less opinionated about certain things, but it's very clear that if you went to Argusy University, that Cheyenne Bryant is not being clean in a lot of things. And what do I mean by that? One, she was in the counseling of psychology program. Counseling psychology program, I mean. So again, her degree would not even, like she's taking a page out of Umar Johnson's textbook. But the reality is Umar's degree probably does say doctorate of psychology because he has a PsyD or doctorate of clinical psychology. And that is why he goes around and say, I'm a doctorate of clinical psychology or a doctorate of psychology. Now, Cheyenne Bryant is saying the same thing. I'm a doctorate of, I'm a doctor. This is how they say it. I'm a doctor of clinical psychology or a doctor of psychology or what have you. Now, the difference is that is what is probably on Umar's degree. And it probably says doctorate of psychology. But hers, I promise you, if she does have the degree, it doesn't say that. Because I know several people who've gone through that counseling psychology program that are very profound counselors that, and their credentials behind their names is EDD. So if she was to follow Umar's suit, she would have to say Doctor of Education. Like, so that doesn't really do the work. So now she says, I'm a doctor of psychology. So typically people don't do that. Like, for example, I have a PhD. So how would it sound if I go around, I'm telling you, I'm a doctor of philosophy? Or if someone who has a medical degree, they say, I'm a doctor of medicine. No, your antenna should go up. So this is education, fam. People don't go around saying, I'm a doctor of jurisprudence. I'm a doctor of jurisprudence. They don't go around saying I'm a doctor. Look, and guess what? This is not about white men degrees and all these type of things and why y'all worried about it. Look, the thing is, if I came on here and lied to you, the same ones who say that we shouldn't worry about these other people lying, they will hold me accountable. And I expect you to do that. You know what I mean? I expect you to do that. But let's get into this. So what I want to say is there's a lot going on. There's this thing called pretty privilege that people are talking about. And I want to speak to all. I'm going to put my notes down. I'm going to just flow. I'm gonna just flow with what I have here on my screen. But I'm gonna start with this. I'm gonna start with this, right? And I'm gonna start because on one of my shows, the last show I did, someone said I couldn't make that video, this video. See, so this is the school that I actually graduated from, right? This is the school that I graduated from. So I want to be clear with that. I graduated from Waynesburg University. Now, this video is on Waynesburg's page. So I want to show you again, there's a variety of ways to prove that you went to a school. And this is just one of the ways, as I told you all, I was a graduate speaker. But now, I just want you to look at the entire video. It's not that long. But again, this is just my way of showing you that this is not something I made.
I called my speech today a patchwork in progress because it is my belief that we are each made up of a patchwork of experiences that we've internalized throughout our lives and on which we continue to build. My hope for you is that you continue to have experiences worth of adding to your patchwork. Pieces of wisdom that are of such value that they become a part of you.
I believe that God set forth the path and knew that I and we would get exactly what we needed for our journeys forward. No, it wasn't easy. But as I said earlier, smooth seas don't make skillful sailors. Nelson Mandela is noted for saying, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So let's follow suit.
Giving back and standing on values are as essential as air, water, and food for our life's journey. It is significant, however, that you not kick to the curb assistance from others as you step into your next chapter.
Take what you've learned and the values that have been affirmed and strengthened here. Be inspired as a citizen to do all you can to restore trust in one another and in the America which offers hope to every citizen of achieving a more perfect union.
Here at Waynesburg, each one of us is given the opportunity to grow as individuals, classmates, and friends. Because of the many challenges throughout our journey, growing is not something we could have done alone. As we continue to reflect on the past 4 years, I want to challenge you to think about what comes next after you leave here today. Once again, we're embarking into the unknown. Approach this next journey with perseverance, dedication, and an unwavering will to succeed and shine your light.
So family, that was me again being the graduate speaker because I graduated my PhD, and the young lady who closed out was actually the valedictorian of the undergrad class. So again, allows you to play fully through. You saw that it's on Waynesburg's page, not my page. I didn't create that video. I think it's a very nice video at a very white institution, you see. And now the thing is, yeah, I went to a white institution. I think the difference is I started off with a very black institution, strategically and specifically African-centered institution in Sojourner Douglas College. Now I ended up at Waynesburg. I gave y'all the story. I gave y'all a story via Argusy. Now, the thing is, I'm very clear that these institutions are pretty white regardless, even these HBCUs that we hold. Well, let's get into some of what I want to show you today. So there's this conversation that's going on in our community about Cheyenne Bryant. This is a Substack of a person that I've come across as a result of someone sharing, you know what? Someone sharing something on Instagram. I mean, no, what it is on Facebook yesterday. And they shared it. Basically, what they shared was this idea. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up really quickly. They shared it saying that people are just kind of like hating on Cheyenne. And to me, so I asked the question, are the sisters hating on Cheyenne Bryant? Is it just that simple? Is it just that simple that people are just hating on Cheyenne Bryant? And I'll let you know my thoughts up front. I think that's absolutely not the case. I think that maybe there's some people who are, but the reality is to minimize it, to flatten it, is just that is irresponsible. And I know we like to see us win, and I get it. But the reality is what's going on with Cheyenne Bryant has a lot more to do with than people just hating on her. So let's get to it. So she says, I've been sitting back quietly, observing this whole Cheyenne Bryant situation, wondering how long it was going to last. To my surprise, this conversation is still in heavy rotation. This sister is Natasha Washington. She has a Substack. You know, go check out. And just to be honest, I think that this sister does make some points to consider. But I also think there's some error in her articulation or conceptualization of this concern with Cheyenne Bryant. I think that she's talking about shadow work a lot, right? So she calls herself the shadow work. She says the shadow work you didn't know you needed. So again, and she's also claiming that people are taking advantage of this opportunity just to get clicks and views, just to bury another sister. And I think that's what the post said that I found on Facebook. It said they're just trying to bury another sister. But again, she's speaking to this. And she's also speaking to it on her professional page, which will bring attention. So the shadow work you didn't know you needed. I think that's the subtitle. The anatomy of the fall. The shadow work you didn't know you needed. She says, I've been sitting back quietly observing the whole Cheyenne Bryant situation, wondering how long it was going to last. To my surprise, this conversation is still in heavy rotation. Now, and I will preface this with my purpose for writing this article is to look at all angles with no assignment of right or wrong to any side. Now, you be the judge of that. She says, I think this is important because people are attempting to try to make this a black and white situation when it is not. I agree with her on that. I do. And I've actually talked about that on my own show. I talked about how, you know, it's more complex than what people are saying, you know, with Cheyenne Bryant. And there's some truth that Cheyenne Bryant has articulated that people aren't really being totally honest about. You know what I mean? I'm not even gonna say not totally honest about. They're just overlooking. You know what I mean? We're overlooking. And I know, for many reasons though. And I'll tell you some of the reasons why, and I'll show you later. And I'll add that a lot of it has to do with training. We could never just dismiss the training that people undergo as a result of the processes they've been through. Some people, it's a variety of reasons. But I think that to flatten it as just black and white, I agree with this sister here. So let's start with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. She says, the issue that I'm seeing is that she wasn't entirely wrong in what she said about not being licensed. And that is what people are having difficulty accepting. Alongside there being lots of inconsistencies in her stories, things can be easily verified as well. But the primary thing is what she said about not being licensed. Now, it's so the thing is, I think what she what I think what she's doing here right now is sharing with you what is primary to her. See, people are looking things in different ways. So I just want you to consider that. Like, she is saying that the primary thing is about her not being licensed. Now, I don't necessarily know if I don't even know if I agree with that. Now, this is on May the 13th. I'm trying to figure out, is this after or before she came out and people started challenging her whether or not she had a doctoral degree? This is on the 13th. So I think this is after. Yes, this is, because last week I did a show on this. And so this is after Cheyenne Bryant doctorate degree, or some people are making jokes saying doctoral. We all can mess up words, y'all. So she is saying again, the primary problem is her not being licensed. And I think it's bigger than that. Was her reasoning controversial? Yes. This is what the sister says. Was it incomplete? Yes. Was it wrong? No. Now, I agree with the sister if the only issue that we're talking about is where she wants to place emphasis. If where she wants to place emphasis is, if that was the concern, then yeah, I would agree with her. But there's an ignoring a greater issue here, that people are merely trying to confirm whether or not she has earned what she says she's earned as a doctoral level practitioner. Look, now I'm messing with the word. So just because it wasn't all the way right, she says, doesn't make her point or experience less valid. And that is what people are actually struggling with. Her doing things the wrong way, speaking on it, how going against everything they've been taught still worked out in the end. No. You know what? I gotta find that post, y'all. Hold on. I have to find that post from yesterday because it was so major to this conversation. And basically I have to find it because I gotta show you what's really what led me to say, okay, let me just pull this trigger, because I think it's very problematic in how we are treating this, right? And let me see if I can find it for you all. Family, make sure you like this video, share this video. But yeah, I definitely, okay, here you go. Here it is. And I'll go and I'll look it up right here. Okay, I found it. Now, let me see if I can put this down and I'll put this up. Let's see where it is. Okay. Now this person posts a lot of things, but let's see. Here it is. Here it is. Okay. Now, this sister and I guess I'm gonna cut her. Okay, I guess I can't. Okay, I'll show it. But nonetheless, this is what I want to show. So this post I saw across my thread yesterday. And it says here, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant It says Dr. Cheyenne Bryant represents everything people were taught was wrong way to do things, and she's still more successful. She is still more successful and well known than them. From what I've witnessed, that's the issue. Watching the person who did it wrong win. So I think there's just so much wrong with this, right? I think there's just so much wrong with this. Like, so the dear sister saying Dr. Cheyenne Bryant represents everything people were taught was the wrong way to do things, and she is still more successful and well known than them. See, that's part of the problem that I have with the way that we conceptualize these things. So again, she's using the article, and the one that I'm reading now, which is titled Dr. Cheyenne Bryant and the Anatomy of a Fall. Now, don't get me because I'm saying Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, because these people are still calling her doctor, and I'm reading it. And I might even slip myself at times and call her doctor. But she does have a doctorate of perhaps letters or something like that. Honorary, a few honorary ones. I imagine she does have those. So let's go with that. So again, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant represents everything people were taught was the wrong way to do things, and she is still more successful and well known than them. Is that, again, how we measure success? See, again, we measure success. We've been taught to measure success through popularity. And that is a major issue in our community. See, now, this is not about Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant just happens to be a case study, an example of how we begin to misconceptualize, from my standpoint, things, and how we will protect people as if wrong even is right. Because it's even said here, now I get it, perhaps what she's saying is she didn't take the traditional route. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe she's saying that she's doing it her own way. And so I'm trying to look at both sides here. And I think that perhaps that's what she's saying, hopefully. But Dr. Cheyenne Bryant represents everything people were taught was the wrong way to do things. She is still more successful and well known than them, she says. So that's what makes someone successful. What I've witnessed, she says, from what I've witnessed, that's the issue. And again, that is simple and simplistic, and I would add illogical. Now, if you said that some people feel that way, I would say yes. But now, to speak to most of the clinician sisters, again, I don't know if I can really buy that. And I'll show you a little later why I'm saying this. So again, are the sisters hating on Cheyenne Bryant? Is it really that simple? This is a drawdown, a breakdown. So that's what long form content, long form breakdowns. We don't do easy work over here. We dig into it and we talk about it together. Now, if somebody wants to come in, you can also come in as I do this, but you can't, you can't, only a few minutes at a time because I got to get through it. You know what I mean? So the dear sister says, again, was her reasoning controversial? Yes. Was it incomplete? Yes. Was it wrong? No. And again, that's if you're only focusing on the fact that she doesn't have a license. But again, that's kind of like a misdirection when we're also questioning whether or not this sister actually has a doctoral degree, or she's a doctor. You know what I mean? That's an issue. So this is deflection. This is misdirection. This is someone trying to take you off of the main issue that people are having. people aren't just saying, well, she doesn't have a license and, you know, and that. Now, I too agree with, if to that degree, I do agree with the sister. If it was just that, we can be real honest, as I said on my show last week, that lots of people do get, they don't care about much more than getting licensed. Now, let me not say that. But a major reason why they get licensed, let me say it like that, is because they want to build insurance. Because the reality is, a lot of people don't want to be, they don't want any regulation. Like, who wants regulation? I mean, like, I want regulation for us. I'm talking about our own community. I'm talking about our own way, our own indigenous ways of doing things. I'm talking about, we need to regulate our own, even if it's not the ACA or the APA or all the rest of these organizations that have code of conducts, which we'll get to later. We need to have our own code of conduct in these different disciplines that we serve in. So again, as I said, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant wasn't totally wrong, as the sister said here. However, can we flatten this to sisters just hating? I say no, and I'll show you why. But is this sister wrong completely? I say no. But there seems to be, for me, from what I've read, I'll tell you, she seems to be doing the same thing that she's arguing that they're doing. She seems to be looking at it, although she's very crafty in her articulation. I'm talking about this sister here, quite like Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. She'll say, I never said that, but she knows she know what her aim is. She know what her aim is. But let's get through it. Now she goes in on people. She said, her doing things wrong, her doing things the wrong way, speaking on it, and how going against everything they've been taught still worked out in the end. All she did was speak on her experience and what works for her, and the world is in an uproar. In true human fashion, the goal is to dismantle her. Now, let me take something into consideration. Maybe this sister was publishing this article and she was just speaking about the license. Maybe when she dropped this, she hadn't seen the latest uproar about her doctoral degree. Because the day she published this, it was at least perhaps a 24-hour period. I don't know when she published it, but I do know that at least I had about a day or two before I even touched it. And I, on the same day, dropped my first video about this situation on Wednesday as well of last week, like as she did this article. Now, all of a sudden, syndrome, this is how the sister has, she labeled it, all of a sudden syndrome. Now, she says, when I graduated grad school in 2008, we didn't even know what licensure was, or that we even needed it, or why we would need it. When we finally got introduced to it, it was labeled as important because it was the way to get paid, hired by jobs, I guess she's saying here, and to eventually work independently. That was it. Now, I don't know what state this sister's in, but different states offered licensure. And I'm thinking this sister's probably a licensed professional counselor or something like that, or was one or something like that. I don't know if she makes it clear. But maybe in her state, licensure wasn't widely available. It was more of a new phenomenon when she was in grad school. But this is not the case for lots of people. In fact, I think one of my professors was the first persons to actually get licensed here. She was the first person. So she's like 001 or something like that. Dr. Sharon Cheston, really respected counselor, psychotherapist, counselor educator out of Loyola. You can look her up. She's very respected for her ways paradigm. But nonetheless, she says now all of a sudden it's a protective measure, but in place to protect the clients and foster a sense of safety and accountability. I have all of a sudden, in quotes, because I am referring to this collective outrage. Because let's be real, let's not act like clients' protection and clinician accountability have been at the forefront of the reasons to get licensed. It has not. It has not. It has been money and being able to work on your own. And for many, I would agree with this sister that for many people, that is the primary reason why people get licensed. That I would agree with her. But again, I don't think, and she's saying she's just she's being, I guess she's giving another side or a different perspective or what have you like that. But I think it's clear even from the onset that what her goal is here and what side, if I could say that she's kind of leaning towards, although she's offering somewhat of a more nuanced perspective, there seems to be some leanings here. She says people have been getting licensed forever. That's no secret. But one thing people have not been discussing on a larger scale is why. If licensure has ever been important enough to put out on the front end, then why is it now all of a sudden worthy of the spotlight? If licensure hasn't ever been important enough to put out on the front end, then why is it now all of a sudden worthy of the spotlight? Why not keep it on the back end? Like where the letters behind your name exist. On a surface level, licensure has always been for decoration. Another list of letters to add behind the name for clout and money. Now, I'm not sure if I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I mean, in fact, it sounds like she's given a variety of reasons now outside of, I think she started off with the reason why people got licensed so they can get paid and higher employment. Now she's saying it's about clout. So, I mean, like she's giving a multiplicity of reasons. But I also think it's kind of, if we really had to be honest, maybe that's why she became licensed. But there's people within the field who fought for regulation of the field. Quite like I'm saying we need to regulate our African-centered, our indigenous and Black ways of working with our people. If we say we're going to do it our way, I get it. I'm not bugging. But what I'm saying is we have to do better regulation. If we're going to do it indigenous ways, we have to somehow regulate these ways in a way that people aren't harmed. So I can't really even now like reflect on this a bit in this dialogue that I'm having with myself in this article is that there weren't people also fighting for licensure who also were fighting for the very fact that we needed to have accountability. Because I'm saying that everything that we're doing as Black professionals, if it's outside of this society's way of being, or we're doing it our way, we still have to have measures of accountability. So now, for me, it would be very essential that we hold each other accountable. I talk about it every day. And I think that's a major issue in our communities, in a lot of our movements. And maybe that's part of my training has me looking at it that way. Now, let me back up. Now, it was probably before training, but my training actually, we have to be clear that, and I'm going to show you the training that you go through, and maybe I know that was a code of conduct when she was in school under her profession. So we're trained to respond in some of these ways, I want to say. We're trained. The sisters who are responding are also trained, highly trained. It's kind of beat into you. Anybody know who has any form of license, if you're a realtor, if you are a barber, if you are a car salesman, that a major aspect and component of that license is they're going to push ethics and code of conduct, and it's beat into you. So I think I'm flowing with my sister here, but I think that to some degree she's not totally sharing with you what actually is going on. Because yeah, there might be some who just want the loot, the money, the moolah. But definitely there are people who fought for licensure, not only because of the money, but also for the regulation of the field. So again, she says, on a surface level, licensure has always been for decoration. Now, some people don't even put letters behind their names. I'm saying like some fields. Another, and I'll give you an example. Most psychologists you don't even see put past their degree. Another list of letters to add behind the name for clout and money. Now, in the field of counseling, and then I'll be honest, some people got like 50 letters. I mean, they got like 50 sets of credentials behind their name. I'm like, whoa, that's overkill, buddy. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant came in and shook the foundation of the illusion people created for themselves. She has shown everyone that she can do what they do and better in terms of status and money. And that is what's pissing people off. You see what I'm saying? Like, is that, I mean, do we flatten it just to that? Do we flatten it to that, the idea that people are upset merely because she has like, nobody knows how much money she's making. Like, really, nobody knows how much money Dr. Cheyenne or Cheyenne Bryant is making. And you don't know how many professionals out here, like we don't know what she's making. We do know that she's popular, but I think that's a flattening of what's really going on. Like, she says she's going to bring the nuance, but there's a flattening and a leaning that I see here. Now she says, now here it comes, the mob. There's only one person that I've seen explain why what Dr. Cheyenne Bryant said was harmful in the same way that she explains everything that she teaches. That is Dr. Raquel Martin, PhD. See, Dr. Raquel Martin has a PhD. That does not speak to her licensure. So she even puts it here. See what I'm saying? She doesn't have anything else behind the PhD. Her perspective I can respect because she is truly educating. Everyone else that I've seen is, at least she's clarifying that she's seen, is using this as an opportunity to shine. Not her, but everybody else. Not to educate, but a way to tear someone down to bring themselves up. Not like, is that really what's going on when you see our sisters out here? And I'm saying sisters for the most part, because there's been a lot of these ideas around pretty privilege and pretty, what is it? Pretty privilege and pretty punishment. And I'll speak to that. Again, I don't like the terms. I don't like the term. I think that I struggle with terms of victimhood. I struggle with terms that have people make their, like, just like, she's pretty. And again, so if she's pretty and she gets this, what are you saying about yourself? I mean, I struggle with typically those type of framings. I struggle with the simplicity of any type of model. And I see a lot of people who really misutilize intersectionality. And I don't even think it's spelled out well enough to utilize it correctly, but for fairness, Dr. Crenshaw or Kimberly Crenshaw started out with something very different than how it's being utilized today. And I speak about this. The struggle I have with intersectionality and the flattening of it and the simplicity and flattening of complex things, like the fact that even Cheyenne Bryant is where she is because of the way she looks, is a flattening. I think that, I mean, that sounds good, right? And I've heard some sisters say that, but again, I saw one sister literally like say, yeah, she has pretty privilege or something, and she did her best job to utilize her own pretty privilege. And people was like, well, you're gorgeous yourself. You know what I mean? So, but I think that to flatten it as pretty privilege is not really looking at this dynamic of her personality, not looking at the tools and the skill sets that she's used. It's not looking at the manipulation or the deflecting. It's not looking at the skill set. It's not looking at the skill set, because you don't have to be that pretty if you're deceptive. Now, pretty, for all intents and purposes, is a tool that can be utilized. And is a tool that most of y'all utilize. I'm talking about whatever version of pretty you are, or whatever version of handsome you are. You know what I mean? Like, but it's not even about the pretty privilege. It's about what is she doing and how is she using it? There's too many pretty and handsome people out here that are doing things above board. So again, I struggle with this idea, just like I struggle with the idea that black men are somehow flattened to be these patriarchal figures, that now there's pretty women privilege, and we're looking at it through a similar frame that we use to identify structural inequality, structural injustice, structural oppression. See, I think we have to really think about that a bit. I mean, I know it's not popular for even in our training, but again, see, you would see that, to me, it's not about male, female, feminist, not this, not that. It's really about weaponizing your victimhood, because now it's such a weaponization going on within the community that one side is saying pretty privilege, and then the other side, who is also equally skilled at victim politics, is saying pretty punishment. I don't think that works. You know what I mean? I don't think it works. I know it doesn't work. And I think it's there's a flattening and lack of the complexity that we're dealing with. So again, are the sisters hating on Cheyenne Bryant? Is it really that simple? Dr. DAW Njia breakdown. So she goes on again and says that it is the wound that Dr. Cheyenne Bryant is bringing out of people. This is why you see Dr. Martin providing education and everyone else providing opinions. Like, so everyone else, I know the disclaimer was here that everyone I've seen, that, there's plenty of people that are actually providing education. All you had to, like, before you wrote the article, I think you could have gone and done some more research. There's too many sisters out here, whether you agree with their ideological framework or not. And I hear in your work some of the differences she has from some other sisters. I'm talking about this sister here. What's her name? The shadow work sister. Let me go. Her name is Natasha Washington. She wrote this article May the 13th, 2026, or at least she published it May the 13th, 2026. So let's see here. Dive into the shadows. So this is what she's going to dive into the shadows. So I think and I could be wrong, but I think that from what I pick up from some other posts that she's written, that she used to be a clinician. I don't know. And now she's more into shadow work somehow. I don't know how to put the pieces together. I haven't looked that far. And I'm not saying that this sister doesn't have some level of some really good points, because I think that we have to really hear each other. We need to hear all the sides. This sister definitely makes some good points, but she also seems to be, she's talking about the blind spots, but her blind spots are very evident as well. And her leanings are evident from my perspective. So somebody put in the conscious block said, I'm not surprised by the Substack post. Paul Pierce said something along the line too a few days ago. Yeah, I heard Paul Pierce. I was like, in the way that I looked at that interview, and that's really one of the interviews that I looked at that had me kind of say, wow, man, this is crazy. Like, his response to everybody, he feels like people are coming out on Dr. or Cheyenne Bryant. And he kind of went into this protective mode or something. I can't remember it verbatim, but it was like, that is a really uninformed or really dismissive way of really looking at the complexity here. And again, this sister's going to go into some things that in her Substack that I think that we can consider, but also I think that is very, very off in ways, as in the way that maybe this serves for some people, but there's a flattening of it when she utilizes this and she's not considering the many other reasons why people are responding other than them being jealous, pretty much hating, jealous of her accomplishments in spite of the licensure or the degree, overlooking or not tending to the idea that she's lied and said she had a degree, overlooking that these other sisters have, and I'm saying sisters in this case, that they have fought hard and worked hard, and some of them had children, and I mean, and worked through the process, and deaths and loss, life coming into people coming to life, and death happening, and still pushing their way through to get these degrees. I mean, as a professor, you have to deal and you work with people who are working really hard, working full-time jobs, coming to school, being there all night, turning in projects in multiple classes, having to tend to their children, their significant others, so on and so forth. And there's a lot that goes on there, having to get feedback from your professor, having to be challenged in class, having to sit through clinicals, and having to sit through your peers observing your clinical work and giving you feedback that might not even feel that great. So to flatten it as other sisters hating on Cheyenne Bryant, I think is a major error. And if you're offering up another perspective in a more complex perspective, I think that my dear sister has failed here. And I'm not saying, though, that some of the things she's saying is not worth some consideration, because there is things to consider in her article, but it's, from my standpoint, just way too simplistic. Conscious Block goes on to say 2 things can be true. There's genuine accountability and a degree of hate, because she reinforced the whole pretty privilege cliche. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't necessarily like the terminology. I mean, it's kind of like I'm white, I'm black, so I'm oppressed, and he's white, so he's privileged. I think that's clear. But I mean, but at the same time, I can't stop there. And that's a structure, that's on a structural level. But the pretty privilege, we have to know how far that thing can go. In fact, so there's pretty and then there's ugly. Is that how we do it? Like, to me, I don't like it. I think we have to come up with some other terms. And I'm not saying that you disagree with that, Conscious Block. It's just something about the cliche that I just don't really like. And I think we need to do something else for our community. Nobody is hating. She is lying, Miss Me 3916 says. It's called backlash for lying and impersonating. Absolutely. And I guess I'm telling you, I'm almost convinced she studied Umar Johnson and started using similar titles. I'm the doctor of psychology. Who is that? Who's a doctor of psychology? Who uses those terms? And Umar said, I ain't showing you nothing. I don't have to show nobody nothing. You know what I mean? I don't think Umar to this date has shown anybody anything. But the difference is, I think people were able to verify that he actually has a doctoral degree. But with her, in the mistake she made was to say, all the records are wiped out. Like, what? Like, she didn't study Umar enough. Umar never said anything like that. You know what I mean? Like all the records are wiped out. I can't get my transcripts, and somehow this school, and then it has people looking at the school more sideways than it deserves to be looked at. To be honest with you, people are saying, "Oh, the school is discreditable. Is not a good." People are these fake psychologists and counselors, and so no. You better check. A lot of people went to Argusy University. I'm gonna have coming up soon the president of the National Association of Black Counselors coming on, Dr. Nick Battle, who is the president of a very strong and growing association, and he's doing phenomenal work with this association. And he's also an Argusy graduate. So I'm gonna have him come on and explain some things. There's so many people that I know who graduated from Argusy that are phenomenal. I'm talking about throughout this whole mid-Atlantic region. And again, someone was like, why would they go there? Like, for example, I know people who went to Howard University, who went to Johns Hopkins, Loyola, Bowie State University, and they went there because one thing, there's few programs that actually have doctoral level programs, especially like in certain disciplines in the mental health realm. So, like, for example, Hopkins has I TA'd, so I was a teacher assistant at Hopkins. And that's another thing. Like, you know, I think even, hold on, was that it? No, that wasn't it. So, but I was a teacher assistant at Hopkins when I was at Waynesburg. So I was teaching classes at Hopkins with Dr. Riggio at Hopkins. There's so many people that from this school that are teaching at different places. Like even Dr. Battles teaches at Hopkins. So what I'm saying, what am I really saying here? So if the education was so subpar and he wasn't qualified, and I know you would really appreciate something like a Hopkins, but Dr. Battle literally graduated from Argusy and he teaches at Hopkins. But you would say, well, wow, Dr. Battle, you went to this school that closed down, and say it's a bad, you didn't learn anything. This is how people are trying to flatten it. But he's teaching at a school that you would highly respect as a top university. So again, students came from all these programs, went there. It's not that simple. People are making things simple. And again, and let's be clear, lots of people who they had master's degrees before they even went to this program. And to be a clinician, you don't need to have a doctorate level degree in most fields, unless you are talking about psychology, and they do have master levels to some degree, but psychiatry, which is an MD. So to flatten it as that simple is problematic. So again, Miss Me said it's called black backlash for lying and impersonating. And people came out on Umar Johnson, right? This sister, to me, seems like she studied Umar. You know what I mean? And then worked it with her femininity, right? Umar works it with his masculinity. She works it with her femininity. I promise you, she would probably call herself an alpha female. I haven't studied enough. She would probably call herself an alpha female. And people are saying things like, what has she done? Again, when we understand personality, we understand that what's in the dark will come out in the light, like this. Yeah, that's right. A doctor of psychology is a PsyD. So she's calling herself a doctor of psychology. But anyway, no one says doctor of psychology, though. That's like no one like, I'm a doctor of psychology. I'm a psychologist. That's what they say. or you know, like Umar and what's the sister name? Cheyenne Bryant. Cheyenne Bryant is saying that she has a degree from Argusy University in the counseling psychology program, again, which is an EDD, but she would have to call herself a doctor of education. You know what I mean? That's what she would have to do. See, no one does that. Like, I have a PhD. If I was to utilize that, I would say I'm a doctor of philosophy. Like, like who does that? Nobody. You know. So Will Red 73 says, sounds like Paul Pierce was and is satisfied with her services, just speculating. I don't even know Paul Pierce like that. I know he's a basketball player, or used to be a basketball player like that now. But he was actually, if you look at the full show, the one that she went on, she could not do what she did to Nick Cannon, what she did with, what's that guy's name? I didn't look at the full show, but the guy with the big hat, he's a football player. What's his name? Y'all know his name. I think was what's his name? Cam Newton. I'm sorry. Is that his name? I'm sorry. Look, y'all help me out. Yeah, I'm horrible. So nonetheless, you know, she couldn't do that with Paul because Paul was like laid back. Oh yeah, Cam Newton. I got it, y'all. He was laid back. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So he was like real smooth with it. You know what I mean? He was like, Paul was smooth with it. He was like, nah. He's like, so I figured you out. Like, he was like, you really I forgot where he say she's from. You from Crenshaw. You real Crenshaw or something. I don't know where, I can't remember exactly where she's from, but he's like, nah, I see it. But then he goes on and say, he respects her and all that, but he walked her down. She couldn't do the same thing on his show. Again, Conscious Block, thank you for the the Cam Newton piece. I appreciate it. That's exactly. So it says here, thank you, Sherry Covington, speaking to the analysis. I guess it's Sherry. Conscious Black said a lot of people drank the Kool-Aid until when she shared her transcript story. Ain't no way a school will offer a full cash refund in place of. Let's talk about that, because I keep hearing people say that, but that is not okay. With her case, if she's telling the truth, okay. I think she's conflating and bringing pieces together, because people who are at Argusy and had classes. So let's say I think I did like 8 classes there, right? So if I did 8 classes there and I decided, because of the distress of the school closing and what I had to go through to kind of transfer credits to another university and perhaps even lose some credits. In most cases, let's just be clear, there's only a certain amount of credits that you can transfer to another university if you transfer from one graduate program to the next. But due to Argusy being there'd been a major like issue. I mean, it was horrible, because I can remember it. I was listening to some of this. There's 2 sisters who did a show, 2 psychologist sisters who went to Argusy, I think I think they said the Bay Area. And what they said was really accurate, in the same experience that happened at Argusy in the DC, Northern Virginia area. What happened was lots of students, they told us, see, the school was private at one time, it went public, and then it went back private with this Dream Center or something like that. Don't quote me, but it's something like that. I'm just going off the top of my head, what I can remember, but it's like the Dream Center. So they were going back supposedly to private, being a private school. But in the midst of that, people noticed that they weren't getting their refund checks, if I remember correctly. And people started asking. And I heard the sister say the other day, and I was like, wow, that's so reminiscent of, it brought it back to me. That is exactly what happened at the Northern Virginia DC campus. People were like, yo, you get your refund check? You get your refund check? You get your refund? What's going on? And then people start asking questions. And so apparently what they did was take the refund checks to try to keep their ship above water, or something like that. And so what happened is that they said they were going to do teach out programs, and which is typical for universities to close down. And that's another thing. People say, oh, these good universities don't close down. No, universities have closed down since they've been opening. Prestigious universities, middle ground, whatever, they've been opening and they've been closing. And they have, and because they are accredited, they have a way that you actually are supposed to go through that process. You're supposed to offer a teach out plan and all types of things, where those who are in there, you're supposed to finish them. But Argusy didn't do that. What they did do is just close after they said they wouldn't do that. Now, in the midst of all of that chaos, they offered students the opportunity forgo all of their credits. Now, I want you to listen here. For those who took like me, I took 8 classes there. And if I just said, F it, I don't want to do anything, I just want to operate where I am, I'm good, I'm not going to pursue this doctoral degree, they would have said, look, they would have wiped my loans away if I would have relinquished my credits at Argusy. I'm talking about the federal government. This is what the federal government did or offered up to students because of the crisis, the trauma, the tragedy that happened at Argusy. That was one of the protective measures that they took. Another thing they did, again, as I was saying earlier, typically if you graduate, if you transfer from one school to another, they will only take a certain amount of credits. So what happened with the APA's program in clinical psychology, the APA came out and said, look, APA is going to allow Argusy students to transfer into other APA programs. And I think, I could be wrong, I can't remember, they can transfer into these programs with all their credits. Like they came out strong. Bam, this is what we're going to do. So lots of people from Argusy's clinical, master's level clinical psychology program, and I think doctoral level clinical psychology, I'm sorry. No, all their APA programs. Because Argusy did have, I think, an APA program at the master's level and also one which is a PsyD at the doctoral level. And what they were able to transfer to schools, and one of the schools a lot of them went to was the school that just kind of opened up in the area, which is called the Chicago School of I think psychology. They also Chicago school people transfer from Argusy to, I mean, the counseling programs to the Chicago school. It wasn't, but the handoff in the counseling programs, because counseling, they got all these different bodies, K-CREP and ACA and all these different moving pieces. So it wasn't as clean. But at some point afterwards, what they did was they created a list of schools that would accept the credits. Now, one of the problems on the ACA K-CREP side is that it wasn't a clean handover. What they call it, easy? I forgot what they call it. Help me out with the word. It's like it wasn't this easy handover. Like, for example, I went to Waynesburg, right? And I still had to do another application. Of course, I'm certain some of them had to do something as well. I had to write another paper they asked me if I had my they wanted GRE scores, and they wanted things again. You know what I mean? So it wasn't an easy process. You had to go through all that again in the midst of a school closing down on you. But people were going to like schools in Kentucky. It was like different schools people went to. And a lot of us finished. Some people said they were so overwhelmed that they just shut down for a year. Like one of my colleagues, I won't say her name here, she just kind of shut down for a whole year. And then she found out from another colleague that we were at Waynesburg, and she came up to Waynesburg. So again, getting back to, I'm thinking that what Cheyenne Bryant, I don't know, maybe she did go to Argusy. I mean, I don't know, but maybe she found out about this, that they did propose to students or offer up to students financial what is it called, to wipe their financial aid bills away for Argusy if they relinquish their credits. That's a real fact. Now, is it true about her? I'm not sure. Does it make some sense? It absolutely does. Now, is she mixing and see, they didn't offer again. So part of the lie is this. I mean, well, I don't know if it's a lie, but part of supposing is a lie. which it seems like it is. Something, there's lies here or misinformation, something in her regard. I'm assuming lies. But she earned the degree. They wouldn't do that for people who earned the degree. And again, as Conscious Block says, how about the dissertation part? And I agree, like she can literally go to her computer and pull her dissertation up. And some other misinformation people are putting out there is that dissertations are all like that they're published. Not everybody publishes their dissertation. I did publish mine. I published my dissertation. You can go and look it up. It's called Measuring the Relationship of Race-Based Trauma, Black Identity, and Spirituality. No. Let me back it up. That's the title I thought I had. It's actually Measuring the Relationship of Race-Based Trauma, Racial Identity, and Spirituality. You can look that up. It's in ProQuest. So again, I do know other people who went to Argusy and went to that program who didn't publish their dissertation. But what Argusy did have, and I'm not sure if they still have it somewhere, that you could find it in their own records, like their own library. Like I'm not sure if they kept some kind of archive for people to go and find it that way. Like, for example, my dissertation is on the school's website at Waynesburg, and it's also in ProQuest. And you have to go and pay for ProQuest, and you can get a bound version of it. You like me, I also paid additional money so that it can be open to the public. So that's something to kind of know. I think part of explaining some of these things and the nuances, because there's different fields here, and there's different schools, and there's different approaches, and there's a variety of ways that that things are handled. So just because one person's process was this way doesn't mean it's that all schools do the same process, or that all people who have dissertations have published them. That's not necessarily true. It's not true. So, okay. Great question. Thank you for that. So let's get into what the sister says here. For you all who don't know, I am going over an article from Natasha Washington, published May the 13th, 2026, in the middle of the controversy of Cheyenne Bryant being questioned about not only her licensure, but also her degree. So it says here, dive into the shadows. This is her article. This is the closeout. This is her great hoorah here. Let's see what she says. As someone who is a seer and specializes in shadow work. Now, I tend to, see, this is one of the things, like this word seer. I'm not saying she's not a seer, but just from my experience is that people who, like, I'm asking, like, what kind of rite of passage she's been through, what type of initiation she's been through, who is her counsel, her body, her elders. I'm not sure, like, who is regulating her form of seership. And then also and a lot of people become seers because, I don't know, I think somewhere she said she used to be a counselor or something like that. And sometimes people, they don't want to be a part of what they feel are westernized ways of doing things. And I agree with it. And that's their right. And that could be their political position and their the way that they politically acted out what they believe is in accord with their values. But again, it's just when I see these type of things, sometimes it just gives me a red flag. As someone who is a seer, she says, and specializes in shadow work, I want to offer some thought-provoking questions to help you navigate this distressing time. I'm going to be honest. The way I see some of the behavior health professionals behaving is showing, oh, she was talking about the behavioral health professionals. So she wasn't just speaking about some of these random YouTubers or exclusively speaking about random YouTubers. She's speaking about a lot of the sisters or behavioral health professionals. And we must be clear that behavioral health professionals are predominantly made up by women, to a lesser degree, Black women, and to even a lesser degree, Black men. So the way I see some of these behavioral health professionals behaving is showing there are some inadequacies being triggered. Let's get into it. So again, she says she's going to show, like, she's going to bring some balance to the conversation. She's going to, I guess, have a more balanced perspective here. But again, I don't really see where she's being that balanced as of yet. Maybe it'll come up in this article. And I haven't read these things completely through. I kind of perused them earlier, so I'm going through it with you as I speak. So again, she says, not again, but one, what specific quality did I attribute to Dr. Cheyenne Bryant that I feel I lack in myself? And how does her perceived failure give me permission to continue neglecting that quality in my own life? That's something to think about. What is she saying here, y'all? What specific quality did I attribute to Dr. Cheyenne Bryant that I feel I lack in myself? See, again, that a lot of mental health professionals would say that's a leading question. Like, and I would, and this is why they will say this is why regulation is necessary. This is why licensure is necessary, because she says, what specific quality did I attribute to Dr. Cheyenne Bryant? Let me see what time. Okay, I'm good. What specific quality did I attribute to Dr. Cheyenne Bryant that I feel I lack in myself? That is saying that someone, that is implying that one has attributed a quality or qualities to to Cheyenne Bryant, and they also lack it. They feel like they lack that quality. And how does her perceived failure give me permission to continue neglecting that quality in my own life? So it's saying that these sisters are reacting, and I'm not saying perhaps there's not a one, but I would argue that that is not the most. I would argue that this is an oversimplification. And I would say that although, again, she says she's giving a more nuanced and balanced perspective, this is her shadow work going wrong. This is her shadow work going wrong. If she had a license, she probably should get her license and go on to supervision again. Because she's leading, this is a very leading question. And maybe that's my training telling me, like, that's kind of like me saying, what specific quality did I attribute to like me asking a client, let me see. Okay, so I asked my client, what specific quality, just imagine me on the couch. Because this is what she's doing here through her Substack. She's providing her, what she's calling shadow work, her form of coaching or intervening in this matter. So that's like me asking, so what specific quality, just imagine me talking to you for a minute. What specific quality did you attribute to Dr. Cheyenne Bryant that you feel you lack in yourself? Just think about me asking you that question. What specific quality did you attribute to Dr. Bryant that you feel you lack in yourself? So and then so I asked you that question. And so now there's some, from my standpoint, there's some assumption here. Now, and it's not to say you can't assume, because we're conceptualizing things, but we don't just ask you or act as, we don't ask things in ways where we lead the question. We ask questions to see if if it will come out of the client, because you don't have to lead the question, because people will tell you. You know what I mean? And maybe you could probably say, well, let me reflect what I think I'm seeing here. Perhaps what I'm seeing. So, all right, Lori. Lori says charisma. So let's go on. So what specific, so Lori said charisma. So now the next part of the question is, how does this perceived failure, Lori, give you permission to continue neglecting that quality in your own life? Hey, Lori, answer that one. Now, hold up, y'all. This is a role play playing out her approach here. This is not clinical work. I'm saying I don't agree with this approach, because it's supposing a thing. Because look, let's say charisma. You don't have that quality. Let's say Lori said, I don't have that quality. So now I say, so you failed at that, Lori. How does that perceived failure give you permission to continue neglecting that quality in your own life? Let's think about that. How's that land for you, Lori? How do you respond to that one? I don't know. Now, is there people that perhaps fall within this conceptualization? Yeah. But is this a flattening? Is this article, does this article have leanings? Are these leading questions? Is it really trying to explore? Like, you can form a conceptualization, but even in your conceptualization, it's for you to explore the conceptualization, not to lead and pin down the person. No, there's some techniques that you can do that to some degree, but that's not that typical. But what I'm saying here, this is an article and it's assuming that this person, again, with Lori, she says charisma. Now Lori responds now saying, what do you say, Lori? Let's see what you got. Let's see. Lori, thank you for participating, Lori. Charisma. I don't know, that picture looked like charisma, Lori. you just in the role play, right, Lori? Because that picture looks like charisma. Then Lori says, not everyone has charisma or that ability to pull people in. I don't perceive that as a failure. It just isn't the way I am. I have other endearing qualities. Boom. Now, Lori, that's exactly my point. That is a bad question as a provider. And now now we can make mistakes. We sometimes ask questions that go awry. You know what I mean? We're human, right? But now the client has to tell you, like, look, hold up. Lori says she masks as well. Yeah, you're doing a great job at masking, Lori, in this picture. Look, I mask well. It looks good. Look, I feel the pull. I feel the pull. So, but nonetheless, let's go back into. I appreciate that. So number 2, which part of the scandal makes me most righteous? Which part of the scandal makes me the most righteous or angry? And where in my own history have I judged or have I judged in others for that exact same behavior? Which part of this scandal makes me most righteous or angry? And where in my own history have I been judged? Or have I judged in others for that same? So it's assuming that this is your response is from some history. It's not even saying, it's not even exploring. It's saying which part of this, it's saying which part of the scandal makes you most righteous, and where in your history have you been judged? Where have you been judged? And I'm not saying people don't do that type of questioning at times, but there's a deep assumption here. There's a deep implication here. That's not what I do. I don't do that. I'll find another way of asking that question. I'll ask the question. If I had to go that far, I would probably say, have you ever been judged? It'll be more of a question. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say, where did that happen to you before? Now, some people do that, but that's less typical. But in this, she's writing, and it's so with this article, when you look at this as an entirety, there's a leaning here. I'm just trying to show you, and I'm going to go past these questions because this is what the article says. Am I more offended by her lack of credentials, or am I triggered by the fact that she achieved the success I feel I earned without paying the same dues that I did? Where in my life am I waiting for a title or a license to give me permission to be great? Number 4, if I feel a sense of satisfaction or relief seeing this controversy unfold, what part of me feels small or unsuccessful, and why does Dr. Cheyenne Bryant struggle feel like a win for my own ego? Now, again, I'm not saying there's not anyone who might or people who might be feeling this way, but I think it's a insult to most of the sisters who are responding, or it's a flattening or a non-complex way of conceptualizing this case. I mean, I get her case here, but I just don't, I disagree with her case. I disagree with her flattening of this particular situation. Again, I mean, and I don't disagree with Natasha Washington's overall, and doesn't mean that none of this is things that we can take into consideration. But this is intentionally created to give Bryant a pass. Like, so you ask Bryant a question, so people are asking Bryant, where are your degrees, girl? So you know how the sisters talk. Where are your degrees, girl? And now this is like, don't ask her. Let me ask you about your deeper wounds. And see, this is that's the type of stuff Bryant does. Let me ask you about your stuff. That's the way that people that are like I'll give you an example. Like if you ever work with a client with narcissistic traits, at some point they'll try to turn it around on you as the therapist. And this is what they do in their lives. Like they're like, so Dr. Winkler, what was going on in your life? I'd like to hear about you. I know we talk about me a lot here. Hey, they're good. I'm telling you, they're good. And they'll be like, so, and they might not start off so noticeable as I just said it, but they'll be like, well, you know, I like to know a little bit. It'll come off like real natural. I like to know a lot more about you. And I'm not saying some people aren't like really don't mean anything by that, but for the most part, they'll start saying, well, I like to hear more about you. I know we talk about me all the time. And Now, some people are just doing that because is uncomfortable. They want to hear something about you. But then there's those that do things like this, and they start asking about you, and then they're gathering information about you, and now they make you the problem because, and part of it is, as long as you agree with them, as long as you agree with them, they won't weaponize it against you. They'll ask you questions. So when the day comes where they don't think that you are accurate or you hit that spot, they'll be like, so then they'll try to weaponize anything you told them. Oh, so what part of the pain is that hitting? What pain pocket is that hitting? And I hear my sister, Cheyenne Bryant, talking about these pain pockets. You know, I have to give a reevaluation of Bryant. And she's very charismatic in a way. She's very intentional, and she knows how to put on a show. But answering questions on her feet, when people don't respond to her flooding and her reads, she doesn't do well. If you keep your composure, like that guy Paul Pierce did, she's a fish out of water. So because she requires that level of friction and back and forth in a very strong way. I don't know. Paul was doing pretty good. Paul was doing pretty good on that. I don't know about his follow-up response, but yeah, it's something to think about there too. But anyway, y'all, family. So this was her post, and let me see if she has anything else. So at the bottom of this, she says, Natasha Washington, reader supported publication to receive new post support. She said, if you recognize yourself in this story, come see me. I'm a holistic integration coach. So she said that people are trying to monetize or get attention and all that, but she's also promoting her business. And I think she probably does, it is what it is. That's what she's doing. I'm a holistic integration coach. I help women move from reactive healing and proactive healing to proactive healing. So you stop repeating the situation you keep having to overcome. Now, again, I'm not saying that she doesn't have, I think there's things in there to consider. But I think that in trying to deal with things on the individual level, oftentimes, and this is what Western psychotherapy is also good for, it gives the society a pass, while it's like this form of therapy, and I struggle with it, where the work is always about you, where the work is always about you, that everything you feel almost, or how does that make you feel, and you feel that way because some part about yourself you don't like, and I can't get with it. I mean, even one of my let's say jegnas, one of their approaches is that, like, if you get upset at somebody about lying, their response would be, what part of the liar in yourself that you don't like about yourself? And I'm like, I don't buy that all the time. Like, I think that right there puts too much on the individual. Or like, you're calling this person out by saying this. What about their behaviors you don't like about yourself? Is it the swindler in you that you don't like? Is it the part of you who, like, to me, that's like organized gaslighting. It's like, in other words, it becomes a point where people begin to say, you never should focus on what other people are doing. Never focus on what other people are doing is what's being said a lot of times. It's like, just focus on you. Because when you get upset, it's about how you feel about yourself. So if you know this person is causing harm, what about, who knows that whether or not they will harm? Like, it's this whole, I think, over constructivist type of approach that doesn't work in the real world. Preach, Brother Cliff, what it is, man. So, yeah, I can't get with, like, to me, this is like when you begin to really and I know a lot of people talk about victim blaming. To me, it's almost like victim blaming, but worse. It's like, I give an example. Like if I know somebody's about to rip people off for their money, I'm not supposed to say anything. And literally, like, I've actually had a back and forth with one of my mentors that like said, well, if this person is doing this, why? How do you know it will harm people? I'm like, because this will harm people in most cases. How do you know it will harm all people? How do you know that some people, I'll give you the real example that I use, extreme example. But this person is saying they're selling an elixir that is healing people, but you know it's gasoline. I'm not supposed to tell my people about it. And then what was told to me is that, how do you know people can't drink gasoline, or that some people can't drink gasoline? Or how do you know? Like, it was that type of conversation. It was like, so it's more about work that you have to do. Like, for like I'm sorry. Every time somebody lie and you don't like it, it doesn't mean that it's about the lies or the liar in you. You didn't like that this person is lying. Is that the person you felt that the person's not, like, because Cheyenne Bryant is lying now, I'm like, hold up, look, she's lying, y'all. Now I'm supposed to be like, let me reflect on myself. Why? Now I can reflect on myself, but the reality is, the more I reflect, I know that I don't like that she's lying because it can be potentially harmful to my people. So yeah, that's it. All right, the hustle life is back in the building. what it is. So let me see. Man, this is a picture right here. What is this? Michael Jackson. I remember a doctor running around giving people BBL injections. She was successful until someone died. Portraying something when you're not has and will always be dangerous. I agree. And some of the anger that you see, and let's say what she says righteous, like it is like, look, I worked hard for this. I'm not going to deny that. Hustle Life says $300 per hour. Fine. And best-selling author winning. Oh, this person said $300 per hour, fine, and best author winning. Okay, yeah, that's what we're talking about. But let's go here. Is this it? Okay, so obviously there were some responses to our post, and I'm going to move past this quickly, y'all, because I got somewhere I want to get to. Today we will talk about walking around. This is Natasha Washington again, unpacking the reaction. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, public opinions and eternal wounds. A much needed conversation about walking around wounded, the walking wounded. Now she's calling. It's just like, in other words, just saying these are the walking wounded because they holding Dr. Bryant, that they don't like what Dr. Bryant has done. I don't think it's that simple. And I'm going to get there. I'm going to move much more quickly, y'all. I gotta go somewhere. But she says, today we will talk about the walking wounded. The walking wounded is as what it sounds. A person that walks around with gaping wounds. They have not gotten any help, healing, and most likely don't plan on it. I won't disagree with her that this is a thing. The way people have been responding to my opinion of their behaviors around this Dr. Cheyenne Bryant situation is wild. So again, see, they don't agree with her, but now she's saying they're wounded because they don't agree with her. See, that right there is problematic, at least from my perspective, so far from what I read. She goes on and says, she said, like I had to explain to someone having a meltdown in my comments today, you all saw an article about this lady and expected to read something bashing her. Now, no, it doesn't mean that you're like, it doesn't mean that, see, that's one conceptualization, but people could have come here to read or to read something, some other opinion like I did, right? they're actually think, anyway, there's multiple ways of looking at this. And she says she's being flexible and all that. But to me, again, she's still leaning in. She's not considering the complexity and the nuance within individuals who are responding. It's not like one reason why everybody does things, right? So I understand, but no one ever said healing was comfortable. She says she's healing. Now I get it. I can agree with her on that case, but I think her conceptualization of the sisters who are calling Cheyenne Bryant out for the most part within the mental health field is off. People are extremely angry because they think I agree with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. Now, that's what she's saying. People are angry because they think that she agrees, right? The reason they think that is because I refuse to join in on their mob and attack her like they are doing. Look, calling people out because is now calling it an attack, right? To name someone who is lying before us and playing us, who are even calling out people on and calling them womanizers and this and that and third, but then turn around and say she's not doing much different. Yeah, it's suspect. So again, Natasha in Washington, May 16, 2026. What date was that? Let's see where we at now. I got to check the calendars. The days move fast. This was last Saturday. So this is a few days. And clearly she had to, at this point, I would imagine, have heard more than it being about the licensure, and that it's about her having a doctorate degree or a doctoral degree and giving us information that's just not adding up, and then doubling down in a very aggressive way. But no, again, so she goes and she continues to read people as if, as it becomes a little funny here. But the thing is, the way people have been responding to my opinion of their behaviors around this Dr. Cheyenne Bryant situation is wild. Now, I'm probably assuming that even the people who made the videos aren't the ones responding to this system. Now, she could be speaking to the people who are responding to our posts. Like I had to explain to someone having a meltdown in my comment section today, you all saw an article about this lady and expected to read something bashing her. What ended up happening is you all opened up an article that held up a mirror, and that was hella uncomfortable. I understand, but no one ever said healing was comfortable. People are extremely angry because they think I agree with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. I lost my place, y'all. The reason they think the reason they think that is because I refuse to join in on their mob and attack her like they are doing. I refuse to become the bullies they are becoming in the name of accountability. See, I have my opinions about the situation, but the type of work I do isn't focused on that. See, that's the problem that I have with people who, see, like I was talking to a brother and they keep talking about their work and the type of work they do. And like, so when other people do other forms of work, there's a minimizing of other people and what they're doing. And somehow I don't think this sister can see this here, or maybe she does. I don't know. But perhaps the hoes that she's speaking to are her own hoes. Because again, she's speaking about the work that she's doing as if these sisters who are calling out Dr. Cheyenne Bryant aren't also doing work that they feel that they need to do as professionals within the field. And just because the sisters, even some of the questions she had earlier, trying to get them to dig deeper into their shadow self, even if they did have these feelings, it doesn't make it like anything is even wrong with it. To me, that becomes even a form of what people call gaslighting. Like, okay, are you angry at Dr. Cheyenne Bryant because you worked hard and now you're not getting the attention to some degree? So like, like, yeah, people can be angry that a fraud is being put on a pedestal. Now, if a fraud is being put on a pedestal, now you weaponize that against people. Now, even if that is a feeling, that's a natural feeling. And it's a feeling a person can process. There's nothing wrong with people feeling angered by phonies. So again, we play these mind tricks and manipulation on people. So, but again, I don't know. This sister here might be trying her best, but she spoke about gaping holes, but there seemed to be that she also has gaping holes in her Substack articles. She says, again, I have my opinions about the situation, but the type of work I do isn't focused on that. Okay, good. I don't need to give my opinion about Dr. Cheyenne Bryant specifically in order to have something to say about the situation. Now, the thing is, she's giving a whole lot of opinions, but she can give her opinions about them. She's giving her opinions about them on an individual level and on a sweeping general level. When they come into her comments, she now says, you are this and you are hating and you need to do shadow work and this type of thing. But then she's also speaking about it in a general level. Now, even if she kept it at the general level, that'll be a thing. And even if she came down a little bit, but the thing is, she is doing the very thing that she said that she's fighting against. She's just not directing it toward Cheyenne Bryant. And see, this is what I see when, like, I don't know if she's like, what her thoughts about Cheyenne Bryant is or what have you. People tend to say that. And people tend to act, well, you know, I'm level-headed. But the more they talk, the more it's like, I don't know, maybe you're a fan. Or maybe if you're not a fan, you're taking advantage of this situation for your own traction. That's what you're calling other people out is doing. But again, I don't think it's that simple. And I'll show you why I don't think it's simple. Why am I talking about this? I'm talking about me right now. I'm talking about this because I highlight situations that keep divisiveness in our community. And I try to highlight the perspectives. Yeah, again, I can see this sister's perspective. I'm not sure if she can see how her approach seems to be deflecting or misdirecting or doing the same thing that she is saying others are doing to poor Dr. so-called Bryant. Now, again, I think she has the honorary doctorate. So, you know, if you know, you utilize those in those ways. So let's move forward. This is why people are losing it in my comments here and on my social media pages, because a bully can deny their bullying in the midst of other bullies, but they can't in the midst of someone who is pointing out their ways. See that? So she's saying these people are bullies but again, she's calling them out for calling out Dr. Bryant, but she's not seeing that she's doing something very similar, but she's doing it to an entire community in the way that she's positioning this article, or people who are responding. As with, she's giving these simplistic reasons and rationale around why people are responding, and it tends to be that they need to do their own work. See, that's the type of therapy I always had a problem with. I always have a problem again, with that form of therapy where it's always about you. There's nobody out here doing any injustice. That you have to do the work inside of you. Now, you do have to do the work inside of you, but there are also people who are con artists. There are frauds. There's racism. There's all types of oppression. These things are real, but that doesn't stop you from having to do the work within you and the work on a greater level. Again, it's a both and. And that is what my Njia philosophy, theory, and counseling model speaks to. It's a both and. We can't flatten it. The sisters, obviously, from my standpoint, missing some holes. And maybe they are missing some. I'm not sure. But I think it's very, well, let me say it like this. I looked at quite a few videos that got views, but the therapists themselves, for the most part, that she's calling out, they tend to have been several of them, many of them. I mean, I didn't have to search hard, that are really speaking from a balanced perspective or speaking from that theoretical understanding, whether or not I agree with it totally. But I can see why they are assessing the situation through their their lenses, their theoretical lenses. Like again, even that pretty privilege and all that type of thing. That theoretical lens, that doesn't work for me. I don't think it works for us, but I understand why they will assess it through that lens. The way women are behaving, oh, she is saying women, okay. The way women are behaving behind this situation is crazy. And typical behavior for women. Women are always outraged about something. When in actuality, they just need a place to fit in. See, she flattens it. This is all. This is everything. You know, maybe, I don't know. I don't know why she doesn't have her license or doesn't have it anymore or what have you. Maybe perhaps it's because of her conceptualization. So she's flattening these sisters who's coming out and speaking about their work they've done and their perspectives and their experience, as she's flattening it to be simply women are always outraged about something when in actuality, they just need a place to fit in. She says women are everything they hate in people. There's a lady in my Substack comments hollering about being a truth teller while simultaneously crashing out when being told the truth about her ways. See, any model and framework that doesn't take in consideration people, whether you see it as an error or not, is problematic. Like, again, I can see why this sister feels this way. I don't think she can statistically support it, though, that sisters are just acting out because they just want to fit in. Not that, and women in general are everything they hate in people. Like, women in general are everything they hate in people. This is what she's saying. I got to continue to say she, so y'all know it's not me. There's a lady in my Substack, she says, comments hollering about being a truth teller while simultaneously crashing out when being told the truth about her ways. So her truth is the truth. So it sounds like she is saying that, you know, when she told her the truth. Now, I'm not sure. See, I don't think it's always that simple to like say, oh, this is the truth about the ways. Like, let's talk about it. Like, even me here today, I could be totally off about this system. It's not the truth about her ways. I can only conceptualize what may be going on with this sister. And my conceptualization at this point is that she's missing something. And that, right, there could be other conceptualizations that Maybe she's intentionally doing this herself. But I'll lean towards the idea that she's struggling with seeing sisters act out in ways in the past. She wants to help sisters. And sometimes when you get tired of seeing people not change the way you believe they need to change, you want to see better in them. Sometimes you lose empathy. Sometimes you experience burnout. See, this is a conceptualization. Perhaps Sister Natasha M. Washington is tired of seeing Black people, specifically sisters, struggle. So now she just wants to beat it into them. See, people do that. Maybe that's what she's doing. Or maybe she's, I don't know. Maybe she has just, again, as I said, the holes and blind spots. So to me, I come on here to give conceptualizations so that we can perhaps understand one another. And sometimes people don't like the conceptualizations because I'm not going to take one side or another. But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that sister's totally off in some of her assessment. I just don't think is, now where I would argue is that I don't agree with her assessment. I don't think it's that simple, nor do I'm going to give you some reason why I don't think it's a fair assessment. So let's move. Again, she says women are everything they hate in people. Going back down here. This is exactly the type of foolery women participate in on a daily basis. I mean, this is what the sister's saying. She's saying this is the type of foolery that women put. This is a sweeping statement. Like, I have a problem with that statement. I have a problem with anybody generalizing anybody, especially those within our community like that. Because a lot of times I'm asking her, like, where did you pull this from? Where did you pull this from? This is exactly the type of foolery women participate in. I'm not, maybe she's saying some of the women, maybe she's saying a subset of women. But again, the way she's articulating it here, and I think she says or read somewhere that she was an LPN at some point or something like, I'm not LPN, LCP, something like that. Maybe some licensee. But I'm assuming if she went through a program herself, that her analysis would be sharper. She says she has, but she's not utilizing her own skills. Like her training, if she was a licensed clinical professional counselor, licensed professional counselor, or social, whatever it is, psychology, whatever it is, her conceptualizations would need some data or some theory outside of I get the theory she's using is probably a very limiting theory. And maybe that's what it is, because she's using shadow work. And hence, when she uses shadow work, everything she sees is through that particular theoretical lens. See, this is what mental health professionals are trained in. Counselors are trained in. I'm saying, when we are operating in a clinical position, counseling clients, we are trained in frameworks. And we know, especially those who are trained, and most of those who are very trained well, let me say that one framework will never tell you the picture. So we use multiple frameworks. So what I think I see here is she's using one framework. She's using this shadow. What is it? Shadow. People always talk about it. Shadow work. And I don't even think she's using it from a Jungian perspective. She's using it more like what you see people in these shadow work, I'm going to say it, cults that are popping up as different forms of therapy. The unconventional therapy that builds off of Jungian psychology. and they name it shadow work and these other things because people are operating outside of people. Let's be clear. People are trying to heal. And as this sister said, healing is hard. So people will go from here to there to here to there and everywhere to try to heal that wound that's hurt. But again, this shadow work lens that she's using, it's not a lens that takes in account the complexity of life, the complexity of these sisters. It's not taking into the complexity of structures and systems and people's experiences outside of that. It must be them. It's something about you. See, that's the thing. It's something about you. This is her lens. It's something about you. Then I'm wondering, she hasn't. Maybe like she could say, well, I think a more balanced approach would be like, well, Dr. Bryant and sisters, maybe it's something that we all need to look at. And I could agree with that. We all can look at some things. The sisters can look at some things, and Dr. Bryant can look at some things, but I haven't heard her say anything about Dr. Bryant. That's why I'm saying I think there's holes, gaping holes, as she said, in their logic. So why does she just go in? What was she just trying to fill them in, but not show the fullness of the picture? So again, today's topic is, are the sisters hating on Cheyenne Bryant? Is it really that simple? I say no. So in closing on this particular page, as we I'm gonna say this again. She says this is exactly the type of foolery women participate in on a daily basis. If you are going to be a truth teller, then you have to be open and willing to hear some truth as well. Now, I think it's cool, and I hear people often say that they're truth tellers. I consider myself even a truth teller, not because or seeker of truth. Like, I don't even like the word truth, to be honest with you. I'm only using that in regards of how some people say in Kemet and that they're to be a makaru. And I did go through a process of being a makaru, meaning that I don't think this is truth or not truth. I think this is very complex. I don't think that you can simply say this is truth, this is not truth. I think we have to look at these things in the multiple moving pieces and layers that are available. It's not no simple truth. So it's not about truth in this case. It's about what's going on. And can we hear each other enough to hear that those sisters have a point? And maybe you do have a point too, Miss Washington. I'm not going to say maybe. You have some points. But your points are overlooking complexity. So she says, you cannot be a messenger without first hearing a message. And if you are unwilling to hear a message, you can never, then, I guess she's saying, then you can never be a messenger. See, again, I think it's a process. Again, like I thought, a psychotherapeutic process, or a maybe she's coming from a coaching perspective. And these sisters are coming from something else. And it's not about truth. It's about us having the conversation. And now if they say some things that strongly implicates Cheyenne Bryant, it's up for her to join that conversation. Who shut the conversation down? She says she owes nothing to nobody. And I promise you, they have a problem with that for a variety of reasons, especially as licensed people who have to show who they are if people ask. Licensed people who have to disclose their credentials when asked. And in fact, you disclose them up front. People don't even have to ask you. You're supposed to disclose them. You're supposed to disclose your approach, your orientation. See, so I think we have to look at this with more complexity, that these sisters are highly trained, and they're trained mainly not to do any harm. And whether or not you agree with them, there's a training there that says do no harm. And in her article before this one, she said, well, now all of a sudden licensure became a part of, no. Licensure became a part of, now people want to act like it's about protecting the clients. No, that's what's embedded in us, to do no harm. People, it's embedded so much in us when we're going through the process that some people actually become too afraid to continue in the process. I mean, you could even just become a realtor licensee, and you would see that even that process is very similar. It's to do no harm, to protect your client, to all those type of things, and to be clear up front, disclose, and to put everything in writing. In real estate, there's no contract without it being in writing. So what I'm saying is that these things are embedded into you. So I think the sister has, her conceptualization it warrants some conversation, but I think it misses the mark. She says, anyways, after the ladies first fit, I made a video discussing what I like to call the walking wounded. This video goes into detail about who the walking wounded are and how to identify if you are one. Enjoy. Now, I think, again, overall, I don't agree with her conceptualization. There's pieces that I think that we can work with, but I think it misses the mark because it's very limited in looking through this one conceptual lens. And I'm gonna let it close out in this with her Substack with this one here. This one is on May the 17th. And I don't know if this is something different. Like I'm not that familiar with Substack, but May the 17th was yesterday. I think. Yeah, yesterday. It says 16 hours ago. And this was even more problematic to me. It's like the more she goes with time, the more it's like her argumentation derails or spirals. Like with time, you would think that someone would get back on track. Miss Washington, again, who has some points to consider. Points. But I think I would give her a poor conceptualization if she was my student. She would have to resubmit the paper with a fuller conceptualization. And actually, that's what I try to offer up over here is conceptualizations, as I said earlier. We want to do deep dives. We want to talk about possibilities, considerations. And it's really about the conceptualization is to help us with our metacognitive ability to understand other people and perhaps why they are responding. And sometimes that's a difficult process to do when you feel attacked, or we haven't built up the ability to hear other people's perspectives. And as I was saying earlier, especially in my program, when I was going through, Loyola and Waynesburg, because I had to do clinical hours. One of the things that I really appreciate about going through that process that many people don't know that we have to go through as clinicians is that we have to go through what we call supervision or small group clinical, like a clinical. We go through clinical internship, and we go through the classes and all that type. But we also have a class that goes with that clinical internship, and they call it different things in different schools. But like this semester, I'll be teaching it. And it's called I've taught it several semesters. Well, in this case, I'll be teaching internship 1. They've been through practicum, they get their feet wet, then they go to internship 1. And in internship and practicum and internship 2, and I think I had to go through probably 4 internships for my program at Loyola. It was 2 entire school calendar years that I had to go through, and we had to go through like 2 full years. So what I'm saying that we had to harness and build up is this ability to hear feedback from our peers. So again, as I stated much earlier in this video, most of you weren't here, is that we would have to record our semesters. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm reading the screen. It says Natasha doesn't share any of her educational details on her site. I just looked it up. Thank you, Miss Me 3916. We would have to record our sessions. We had to get permission from our clients and, a release form to show this video in our supervision class. And we had to do case conceptualizations, like anywhere from 10 to 20 pages long, utilizing multiple theories, whether that be, whatever theories that kind of sit with you. And to be honest with you, there's always a theoretical underpinning approach that the schools actually kind of put in the program in general, especially like counseling is humanistic and I'm going to say feministic. It's going to also be like probably aspects of so counseling is this social justice orientation. That's one thing I want you to consider when you consider these, just like the training and counseling and even psychology and even social work, especially counseling. It's a counseling psychology. There's a social justice framework. That's supposed to be what set the different field. People try to figure out what makes their fields different. The different counseling, psychology, counseling, education, counseling, clinical. Like there's different things that people focus on, or different that the fields focus on, or the specialties focus on more than the other. They all kind of do similar things, but there's a focus. You would have to understand there's a focus that each do differently. And it's not as simple all the time to kind of tease those out, even just with labels and titles. And because a lot of times it has to do with even your education in different schools and stuff like that. But you have to do these conceptualizations. These conceptualizations are long. Then you have to do verbatims. So you record the video, then you have to take a segment out of that video. I can't remember. It was like 5 to 15 minutes. And you have to write it up verbatim. This is before technology. And then if you do use technology, it has to be HIPAA compliant. And when I was going through my master's program in doctoral, they didn't have all this stuff that you can transcribe and, your video and all that type of thing. You had to write it out. Every word you said, every word they said for a segment of that video. And what you do is, then you have to actually write why you did this and what the client was doing there and what skill you were using and what, in other words, what intervention you were using, so you can be very aware of the interventions that you're utilizing with the client. And many times, as a new therapist or a counselor in training or what have you, you don't even know what skills you're using. You're just doing your thing. But you have to, at some point, you have to tie it back into some theory. So it's not about what you want to do. It's about what does the theory say to do. And as one of my mentors say, theory allows you to get yourself out the way. Because if we don't use theory or some ideological approach in other spheres like politics, you'll just be doing what you do. You won't have, what you feel like. You won't have any framework to build off of. So that is one of the major things we do in the mental health field. Some better than others. But what I'm saying is her conceptualization is struggling because it seems like she's using this shadow work framework and she's missing so many other things that's going on. All right, so let's get to it. She says, before you self-appoint yourself to be the person that can hold people accountable, first ask yourself. You hear that? She says, first ask yourself before you self-appoint yourself to be the person that can hold people accountable. So again, this is my problem. And I keep saying it. Like we say we need to hold each other accountable in our community spaces. And then when you hold people accountable that people like, then you become the problem. And then we say 2 weeks later, no one holds these people accountable. See, I mean, I'm about accountability. And I'm about receiving accountability. But typically what people do, I find when people are trying to hold people accountable, especially when right now it's kind of popular, the whole Cheyenne accountable to some degree. It looks like it's taking a turn. We'll see. But there's times where I've tried to hold people accountable in different spheres. And when you do that, people say, well, nobody's perfect. To me, and even I had a conversation about that the other day. Like, to me, when we say that, that's a conversation stopper. So we say we need to hold each other accountable. The same people say we need to hold each other accountable are now saying no one's perfect. We all have flaws. And in my Njia theory, in my framework, I talk about there's a difference between flaws and frauds. Because somehow we conflate them. And when we're talking about Cheyenne, we're not talking about a flaw. We're talking about a fraud. We're talking about one who is portraying something that she isn't. She's betraying something that she isn't. And somehow people are trying to normalize that. Natasha, in some way, I don't know what Natasha's saying here, but it seems like she's saying she's not making any type of, she hasn't assessed, she hasn't stated her thoughts, but to me, through my conceptualization, it's kind of seeping out. Because Natasha says here, before you self-appoint yourself to be the person that can hold people accountable, first ask yourself, have you washed the back of your neck with a white cloth? She says, can you use your heels to scratch your legs? Do you sit down? No, she says, do your sit down air stink? Do your sit down air stink? She says. She says, do you breathe hard while sitting down? Have you plucked your chin hairs? Is your big toenails thicker than your glasses? Have you drank any water or eaten any fruits and veggies in the last 24 hours? I could go on, but you get the point, she says. She says, and she says. She says, always worry about self first. Have the night y'all deserve. So again, this is a major error that Miss Washington is committing here. Again, it assumes things. It assumes that these people haven't already considered themselves first. And that's the problem I have with this type of approach that continues to say, only worry about yourself. People say, only worry about yourself. See, this is problematic. Because then how do you ever get to accountability? Because then you say stuff like this. You didn't talk to those people. You don't know if they considered themselves already or what work they've done. You're only assuming that people are responding to this because of what you're saying is they're hurt. To me, through the in my Njia theory and just my ways of conceptualizing the world, we can do two things at one time. We can do the work on ourselves and also hold each other accountable. But again, we say things like this many times when we don't want the people, or not even if it's not even always about the people. It's like our own traumas, even if we want to conceptualize this thing through a traumatic lens on a general level. Many times we're so tired of seeing Black people not quote unquote win, that when we think one is winning, as she articulated that she believes that Cheyenne is winning more than all these people who went to school and got the degrees and all that type of thing, which I'm trying to figure out, how do you measure that? I don't think a lot of people would agree with that Cheyenne is somehow doing better than these sisters. You don't know these sisters. I know too many sisters in the field that are doing really well. I'm saying without the celebrity. I'm saying sisters who are really doing well financially, even contracts, books, workshops, lecturing, teaching, publishing. Like, everybody doesn't want to be a celebrity YouTuber. Everybody doesn't want to be a celebrity therapist. And what I mean, both ways. Not everyone wants to serve celebrities. You can't pick that all the time because sometimes they'll come to you. But definitely not one that is a celebrated psychotherapist. Not everyone wants to have a podcast. Not everyone wants to make the news. There's plenty of people that don't want anything to do with that still will hold her accountable. So again, this sister goes in her, I'm going to say her conceptualization failure. She says, before you self-appoint yourself to be the person that can hold people accountable, first ask yourself. So I'm asking her to ask herself. She's holding a lot of people accountable that she don't even know their backgrounds, who she had, like she's they're typing things, and now she's making these sweeping conceptualization and general diagnosis of them. But we've seen Cheyenne parade around, and I'm saying, yeah, we've seen some things about Cheyenne. So now you can hold a whole chat board or a whole comment section accountable, but they can't say, well, this seemed funny, without them being haters. You know what I mean? Like, family, make sure you like this video up, share this video. I'm gonna be out of here in a few. Share this video, like this video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all who taking a ride with me, because I do long form content. I like to have discussions. You know what I mean? And that's not everybody's thing. But some people want to take the ride. You know what I mean? So, you can't please everybody. So again, she says, before you self-appoint yourself to be the person that can hold people accountable, first ask yourself. I'm gonna go through it real quick and then I'm gonna go to the next thing. Have you washed the back of your neck with a white cloth? Can you use your heels to scratch your legs? Do your sit down ass think? I never heard nothing like that before. Do you breathe hard while sitting down? Have you plucked your chin hairs? So anyway, if you do any of these, you can't hold nobody accountable. Woo, girl, you gotta, in the grad program, I'm gonna give you a D, and you know what that means. It's hard to get a D in the grad program. That mean you can't get a C in a grad program, family. If you don't know it, you might be able to get 1 C. You get 2, you're gonna get kicked out. For the most part. So you can, if your big toenail is thicker than your glasses, then you can't say nothing. She says, have you drank any water or eaten? If you ain't drink no water or eaten any fruit or veggies over the last 24 hours, then you can't say nothing. This is her measurement. This is her code of conduct. These are her standards. So again, these are not the standards that the sisters are saying. The sisters are saying, well, there's a standard in the field. So she says, well, no, I'm going to give you my standards. See, they're utilizing the standards from APA, ACA, and all these other boards and that exist. Marriage, life, family, count, all that. But she said, hold up. I'm going to give you my code of ethic. My code of ethics. Shut up if you haven't eaten any vegetables. Then she says, I'm assuming you haven't worried about yourself if you are trying to hold somebody accountable. Natasha. Sister, you got something going on, but this ain't it. Natasha. I see you do have there's some legitimacy in some of your shadow, but it is grossly overutilized and generalized as it pertains to this particular situation and in general in our population. Yeah, I said it too, Curtis Shaw. She is, from my standpoint, my conceptualization is she reminds me of Dr. Umar Johnson. I said that earlier in this video several times, that to me, Cheyenne studied Umar. She said, Umar ain't never shown no degree. I ain't showing no degree. Let me buck like Umar. The problem is people can search Umar and find out that he had a degree. Some people still don't think Umar has a degree. I never questioned Umar's degree for a variety of reasons. I question his behaviors. So again, I want to show you what led me here. Oh, shoot. What led me here, family? Again, I want to show you this. This came down my timeline yesterday. And my cousin, who just joined the Building Proper Perspective, Peace and Power, he and I did a show the other day. Go and check it out, like it, and all that type of thing. What led me here was this comment from Sister Phillip. And it came up my timeline. It says, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant represents everything people were taught was the wrong way to do things, and she is still more successful and well known than them. From what I've witnessed, that's the issue. So again, it's this simplistic way of, and I'm sorry, Cheyenne looks, if I know y'all say she got pretty privilege, but my cousin does makeup. He's a rock star makeup artist, and I'm just sorry. I'm just saying. She's a beautiful woman without it, but sometimes y'all get caught up in the illusion. My cousin, check him out, Marcus Miller, top tier makeup artist. I mean, I'm serious. Go check him out. My cousin, but he's my brother cousin. You know what I mean? So Ms. Phillips says, from what I've witnessed, that's the issue. Watching the person who did it wrong win. So because people who didn't do it, so it's not about her lying. It's not about her potentially causing harm. Is this sister, Miss Phillip, and also Miss Washington has highlighted that is about that really these sisters are, besides the sister, one sister who she gave a big up to, Dr. I keep forgetting her name, but she's a sharp sister. Because what's the sister name who the clinical psychologist sister? So basically they're oversimplifying this thing. And to me, their analysis is off and they're calling other people out. So in other words, for what I'm getting from most people, we don't need to hold, from what I'm hearing from this, don't hold people accountable. Y'all hating. And that's, I mean, I had that type of conversation with a brother, and I think he just did a show today talking about black men need to stop arguing or something. It probably was about, I could be wrong, but I ain't gonna say nothing about that. But part of my Njia framework is this: let them be wrong. Walk in your highest values, as one of my mentors say. Let your values be in accord with, let your behaviors be in accord with your highest values. And that is what we call integrity. The Hustle Life says she claims to be a psychology expert and life coach, therefore deserves an FBA pass, doctor. Now, if it's an FBA pass, I ain't giving it to her. Hey, but she out there with Tariq, though. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who do a lot of actors out there. That's what I can say. She's an actor. I mean, in fact, she's an actress, right? She really is an actress, isn't she? But what I did read more recently with a little bit more research is that even in California, that expert is really, she's working with some murky water. Because in the law is written that you should not utilize the word psychology, and all these type of ways to present yourself as an expert. Now, it didn't say you couldn't call yourself a psychological expert, but it is definitely in the language to present yourself as an expert in the field of psychology. I think that's a little murky. I don't know, Yeah, I don't know. Umar got off with it, but a little bit because he does have a level of what is it called? I'm sorry, y'all. Let's do this. Let's move on. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's see what's next. I'm about to close this on out, family. I'm gonna just do it this way. And this is how I'm going to close out. I don't have everything I wanted to put together for you today, but I want to show you something that I think we must consider when we're examining this. And it's not just as simple as what these people are saying. And I pretty much said it already today, but I want to just be clear. I know people like to see things, so I'm going to do it that way. And I want to show you some things here. So let's look. So let's be clear that if she was to be licensed, she would be licensed as a counselor if she finished that program. I want to keep that clear. She also said that she will be licensed. I'm talking about whether or not she got the doctoral degree or the master's degree. She will be licensed as a counselor because the doctoral degree didn't have any KCREP or APA accreditation. But the field of counseling, if your coursework aligns, you can take the exam and become a counselor. It's not, the other fields don't do that. Clinical social work, you can't, in most cases, maybe it might be different in different places. Because I think it is, I know. But it's let's think of it. She would more than likely be a counselor. More so a counselor, because she's also said that she doesn't need the doctoral degree because she's an LMFT or something like that, marriage and family therapist. So she would be more than likely fall under counseling. So I want to just show you a few things. This is the 2014 ACA Code of Ethics. Let's just read the mission. The mission of the American Counseling Association is to enhance the quality of life in society by promoting the development of professional counselors, advancing the counseling profession, and using the profession and practice of counseling to promote and respect for human dignity and diversity. See? No. I know that, let's be clear. I know that a clinical social worker can be a therapist at a master's level, but they typically have their own board. So they typically, like here in Maryland, you have the social workers board where they get their licensure through that on that master's level. Okay. So let's go back. So this is you saw the code of conduct that the sister put together, right? Let me see if I can find that really quickly. You saw her code of conduct. She put together. Let's see what she put together. Let's find that one more time. I just want to juxtapose these code of conducts because, you know, this is what she's doing. You know what I mean? Like, let's juxtapose her code of conduct. And so, yeah. So this is Miss Washington's code of conduct. Again, one more time. Natasha says, before you self-appoint yourself to be a person that can hold people accountable, first ask yourself, have you washed the back of your neck with the white washcloth? Okay. And she goes on. And then she finally goes off. Always worry about yourself first. Have the night, y'all. That's her code of conduct. Now, these sisters who she's arguing are arguing from perhaps this form of code of conduct, right? So, and this is what you're trained in school. This is embedded in you. We have to use this even in our projects. We have to write about it, right? Ethical decision-making models and all types of things, right? You know, this is what happens, right? So let's do this. So let me just read this. The American Counseling Association is an educational, scientific, and professional organization whose members work in a variety of settings and serve multiple capacities. Counseling is a professional relationship that empowers diverse individuals, families, and groups to accomplish mental health, wellness, education, and career goals. Professional values are important ways of living out ethical commitment. The following are core professional values of the counseling profession. 1, enhancing human development throughout the lifespan. Honoring diversity and embracing a multicultural approach in support of the worth, dignity, and potential and uniqueness of people within their social and cultural context. Promoting social justice. I want to highlight that. See, social justice is also essential. And I would argue that many who've been trained see that naming this is a part of social justice against someone who they believe will violate their community, showing up as a fraud, as I said, my Njia framework, we speak about, we have to understand there's a difference between flaws and frauds. Everybody has flaws, but not everybody's a fraud. We can hold space and even talk about the flaws. You know what I'm saying? We expect people to have flaws. We don't expect people to be, we know people are going to be frauds, but we don't just ignore their fraudulence. Because if a person is fraudulent in one way, you best to believe that it's a web of fraudulent behavior. And that's just speaking a bit of personality. So again, safeguarding integrity in counselor-client relationship. So look, number 4, safeguarding the integrity of the counselor-client relationship. So they're taught that these are really important. Practicing in a competent and ethical manner. This is just the preamble. So to them, this is very important. This is what they've been taught that they must do. So again, I say, like, so to flatten my sisters is just being hating and angry and jealous and having pretty punishing her because she's quote unquote pretty. In fact, just my own opinion, I've seen some of them who you can say calling her pretty, who are punishing her because she's pretty. From my perspective, is prettier than her. I'm just saying, like, I don't, that's just my perspective, my objective, my subjective eye. So again, this is Washington's code of ethics that we must follow, and this is the code of ethics that they're following. So that, and this is what, and this, look, they just don't put this on the like, just have this published and you don't use it. Your teachers actually teach you from this. You have a whole class on law and ethics, and then the code of ethics is intertwined throughout all your courses for the most part. What is the ethical decision? What do you do? How do you do? Client confidentiality. It's throughout your coursework. So these sisters aren't just hating, they have muscle memory. I'm not saying there's nobody that's got a little hate in them. I'm just saying, for the most part, these professional sisters who are therapists aren't just reacting. They're responding, and as a result of their training. It ain't about this hate. Now, they might be conceptualizing some things that you disagree with, because you probably disagree with things I'm saying as well. But the thing is, it's not about whether or not you agree with them fully, but to flatten their analysis to be just pretty privilege is whack. I'm sorry, punishment is whack. To flatten them as just haters is whack. In fact, look, let me just stop there, because I'm like, again, I want to get back to the idea that beauty is subjective. I know we have these standards and all that type of thing, but I don't like the terminology. But again, it's more complex than that. These professional values provide, it says here, these professional values provide a conceptual basis. See that? Conceptual basis for ethical principles enumerated below. These principles are the foundation for ethical behavior and decision making. You hear that? It is not a counselor, therapist, psychologist, social worker, or trained person that this has not been embedded in, if they went through all this type of education. It says the fundamental principles of professional ethical behavior are autonomy, or fostering the right to control the direction of one's life, non-malfeasance, or avoiding actions that cause harm. So that's in them. They don't want to cause harm. It's in the preamble. It's embedded in their minds that they don't want to cause harm, and nobody should cause harm. Right? beneficence or working for the good of the individual and society by promoting mental health and well-being, justice, or treating individuals equitably, and fostering fairness and equality, fidelity, and honoring commitments and keeping promises. Honoring commitments and keeping promises, including fulfilling one's responsibilities of trust in professional relationships. It's in their code of ethics. They had to write papers on this. It's embedded in their minds, whether or not they even remember. It's a part. It has been inculcated. It has been inserted even to protect the client, to protect the field. Fidelity, or honoring commitments and keeping promises, including fulfilling one's responsibilities of trust in professional relationships, and veracity, or dealing with veracity, or dealing with truthfully, or dealing truthfully with individuals with whom the counselors come into professional contact. So again, veracity, or dealing truthfully with individuals with whom counselors come into professional contact. Let's see, I see some messages popping up here. I'm so glad this message is coming from a man. If a woman, her looks would be sized up, and if not considered more attractive than Cheyenne, it would be chalked up as pretty punishment, hating, and envy. I appreciate that. So again, this is what, so it's not these easy sisters are hating conceptualizations. I'm not, look, we got work to do in the brotherhood and the sisterhood. But to chalk this up to just be they hating, that's not what it is. Is somebody hating? Is there some people who might be hating? Yeah, might be some, but that's not what these sisters are doing. What I'm seeing, I know I train people in this. I've been trained in this. There's an innate visceral feeling you get when you see people acting out of certain ways. Like, oh, whoa. What are you doing? And this is why people often say, well, counselors don't act that way. They don't act that way. She doesn't act like a therapist. She doesn't act like a psychologist. She doesn't act like a professional. She doesn't act like a PhD. Because there is a code and there are repercussions if you don't follow these codes, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. Because there are definitely in all codes things that people don't agree with who are also in the field. Let's keep that a buck. Because we understand that within these institutions, it's always set up in a way to keep certain people out. It's always set in a way to keep people in certain positions. It's always set up in a way to keep the status quo. But that ain't what we're talking about right here. But that conversation is always also needed. Now, if the sister Washington was saying that, then I would agree. But this ain't what she's saying. She just gave you her code of ethics. I'm being facetious, y'all. When I say it's her code of ethics, a little levity here. You know what I mean? Her code of ethics. But I mean, that's the closest thing I got to it. It looks like she ran it down. Have you drank any water or eaten any fruits and veggies in the last 24 hours? If you haven't, you can't hold nobody accountable. All right. So ACA Code of Ethics purpose. The ACA Code of Ethics purpose serves 6 main purposes. The code sets forth the ethical obligation of ACA members to provide guidance intended to inform the ethical practice of professional counselors. The code identifies ethical considerations relevant to professional counselors and counselors in training. That means if you're in school, you still must abide. The code enables the association to clarify for current prospective members and for those served by members the nature of the ethical responsibilities held in common by its members. The code serves as an ethical guide designed to assist members in constructing a course of action that best serves those utilizing counseling services and establishing expectations of conduct with a primary emphasis on the role of the professional counselor. The code helps to support the mission of the ACA. The standard contained in this code serve as the basis for processing inquiries and ethics complaints concerning ACA members. Okay, pro woman, I had to ask you a question. Are you a brother or sister or indifferent? So, but anyway, pro woman 67 says, and peace to you, that at Miss Me 3916 agree, Attorney Simone is just as pretty and actual lawyer, so no one called her a hater, even though she has exposed Dr. Bryant as a fraud. Well, they probably, and all that's subjective, right? But I get it. I think, I don't even like to do that, but as far as like, I get it. We do have standards of beauty, but yeah, man, I don't like the idea of pretty privilege. I don't like the way it, I would probably write on it one day. I have to flesh it out a bit. But again, this is the ACA Code of Ethics purpose. Let me see what I got here. I highlighted this. I didn't go through it a lot, but it says counselors' action should be consistent with the spirit as well as the letter of ethical standards. No specific ethical decision-making model is always most effective. That means that we could train in different models to deal with unethical situations. Like we actually have frameworks and models that can be utilized to take you through the process when you find yourself up against something that might be unethical, or that you're considering how to approach it. You know what I mean? So it says counselors' action should be consistent with the spirit as well as the letter of ethical standards. No specific ethical decision-making model is always most effective. So counselors are expected to use a credible model of decision-making that can bear public scrutiny of its application through a chosen, what decision-making model is Cheyenne using? What decision-making model is Natasha Washington using? And whoever else, Sister Phillips. What ethical decision-making? See, what I'm saying is these sisters are trained, whether or not you agree or not, this is a part of the training. Through a chosen ethical decision-making process and evaluation of the context of the situation, counselors work collaboratively with clients to make decisions that promote clients' growth and development. A breach of the standards and principles provided herein does not necessarily constitute legal liability or violation of the law. Such action is established in legal and judicial proceedings. So I'm going to go on. I'm just show you different parts of it and compare this against this against this, and I'm not saying this is perfect, but it's up to us to make the changes that are necessary within. So just going down to the first line, the first A1, The primary responsibility, what's the primary responsibility? And this is what I said to the brother the other day. He told me, you trying to protect the industry. It says it here. The primary responsibility of the counselors is to respect the dignity and promote welfare of clients. It's about the clients, family. It's about the people in the community. It's not about you and your feelings completely. It's about all your feelings are in there too at times, you know what I mean? But to flatten it to say, oh, you just hating sisters is an error. Let's go. So there's all types of things to consider. Mandated clients, types of information needed, counseling plans, clients served by others, avoiding harm, and imposing values. You know what I mean? So you got to deal with these things. Personal values. It's saying counselors are aware of and avoid imposing their own values and attitudes and beliefs and behaviors. Counselors respect the diversity of clients, trainees, and research participants in seeking training in areas in which they are the risk of opposing their values onto clients, especially when the counselor's values are inconsistent with the client's goals and discriminatory in nature. It's just an idea of something that comes up. You can't have sex. It says here, if you're a life coach, you can do what you want to do. Sexual and or romantic relationships are prohibited, y'all. There's some nuance here, but you're not with your client. You know what I mean? There's nuance with years and all that type of thing, and then there's laws in your state that you got to adhere to and all that type of thing. But people get in trouble all the time, even previous sexual relationships. Counseling friends and family members. Confidentiality and advocacies. Counselors obtain consent prior to engaging in advocacy efforts on behalf of an identifiable client to improve the provision of service and to work towards removal. Let me see here. So there's something that I'm looking for, but what I wanted to tell you is even when you're talking about confidentiality, you like we have to be very clear. Even I can't find it here, or the verbiage, but you can't just be saying like she said, well, this client, Nick Cannon is my client because I wanted to interview with him. Like it's supposed to be some informed consent there. She just made them her client. You know what I mean? Like you just don't do that. But let me go down, y'all. Y'all see all this type of thing, right? Respectful confidentiality. Counsel protect the confidential information of prospective and current clients. Counselors disclose information only with appropriate consent or with sound legal ethical justification. Is even talking about clients lacking capacity of giving information shared with others, serious foreseeable harm and legal requirements. Let me go down, y'all. I just want to give y'all an idea of this compared to this and why these sisters are responding, because they're highly trained. They had to do write papers, professional responsibility. They're calling her out because they're trained in this. I wanted to actually, now in this section here, section C, I did get to this part. I might do another. So professional qualifications. It says counselors claim or imply only professional qualifications actually completed and correct any known misrepresentation of their qualifications by others. Counselors truthfully represent the qualifications of their professional colleagues. So what does this mean? This means that when people are saying she's something that she's not, she's supposed to correct it. So if your client comes in and say, hey, Dr. Winkler, and I'm a master's level clinician, I have to say, well, I'm not doctor, at least not yet. You know, like I'm not doctor. It says counselors truthfully represent the qualifications of their professional colleagues. Counselors truthfully represent the qualifications of their professional colleagues. Let me say that one more time. Counselors truthfully represent the qualifications of their professional colleagues. Something to think about. Counselors clearly distinguish between paid and volunteer work experience and accurately describe their continuing education and specialized training. In other words, you got to disclose who you are, what you are, and if this is a counseling session. You have to describe whether or not this is volunteer or paid. You got to do things up front. You don't just show up somewhere and say, well, that was a counseling session. It says counselors claim only licenses or certifications that are current and in good standing. Educational degrees. Counselors clearly differentiate between earned and honorary degrees. Counselors clearly differentiate between earned and honorary degrees. Let that one sit. And people are asking, like, so what's this fight? Why are they so arrogant? No, it's part of the training. It doesn't have to do with arrogance all the time. They have to disclose, so they want you to disclose too. What they say, what's good for the goose is good for the, how they say, gander or whatever? I'm not good with those things, y'all. Again, counselors clearly differentiate between earned and honorary degrees. And there's been this honorary war going on against people saying, well, these PhD people are arrogant. And I'm not saying none of them aren't, but we also have to understand what they're adhering to. Implying doctoral level competence. Okay. In this section, counselors clearly state their highest earned degree in counseling. See, the thing is, in counseling, for the most part, you can be master's or doctoral. For the most part, psychology is doctoral. It's doctoral. They do have some masters, cool counselors and stuff like that. That can be licensed, I'm saying, or certified. Counselors clearly state their highest earned degree in counseling or closely related fields. Counselors do not imply. Let me give you an example. If you have a master's degree in clinical psychology, and then you also take some additional credits, you can become a counselor. Typically, a clinical psychology program won't give you all of the credits that are required to get a master's level degree. Just like school counseling, if you went to school for school counseling, even you could have taken even 60 credits or what have you, but still haven't had enough of the clinical aspect to qualify for the licensure. So the same thing for like master's level psychology programs often don't fulfill a master's level licensure, but you can take additional credits. A lot of people go to another school and take the credits, or they do it after they finish their master's degree, and some have it kind of built in. It's just different ways they do it. But for the most part, people are not licensed at the master's level. When we talk about psychology, they're licensed at the doctoral level. Counseling is at the master's level. Social work starts at the master's level. And I think psychology used to be at the master's level, but then they changed. They fought to make that change. So Again, counselors clearly state their highest earned degree in counseling or closely related field. Counselors do not imply doctoral level competence when possessing a master's degree in counseling or related field by referring to themselves, probably it says, as doctor. In counseling context, when their doctorate is not in counseling or related field, counselors do not use ABD, which perhaps she might have ABD, all but dissertation. I don't know. So you can't use, and you can't even call yourself an ABD, yet alone a doctor, if you didn't complete your dissertation, or other such terms to imply competency. So you could have went through an entire program in counseling or related field and didn't finish your dissertation, but you cannot imply that you are an ABD level practitioner. Accreditation status. Counselors accurately represent the accreditation status of their degree program in college or university. So there's just different things I just want you to kind of look at. You can consider accurate representation. Counselors claim or imply only professional qualifications actually completed and correct any known misrepresentations of their qualifications by others. Counselors truthfully represent the qualifications of their professional colleagues. Yeah, we said that already. Just be who you say you are. Stop you lying is what they're saying. And disrespect to the people who actually have PhDs. So yeah, I'm going to probably wrap it up, family. I did want to get here and say, well, basically, it's not that simple to say our sisters are hating. There's a code of conduct, whether they agree with every section of it or all the tenets in it. They have been trained in these things. They have been held liable to adhere to these things, and they are responsible to even approach others who are operating under the guise of their profession, or those who are licensed in their profession, who might not be operating ethically. For example, here. So this section here is resolving ethical issues. One thing it says here is informal resolution. You know, when the counselors have reason to believe another counselor is violating or has violated an ethical standard and substantial harm has not occurred, they attempt to first resolve the issue informally with the other counselor if feasible, provided such action does not violate confidentiality rights that may be involved. So so it goes on telling you reporting ethical violations, consultation. It tells you like, so you are taught to also protect the field, as the brother was simply trying to flatten me too. And like I said, it's all about the clients. It's all about my people. If I serve my people, I would do whatever it is that's ethical to my people, to just the people that I serve. I'll say that even more clearly. But as it pertains to this social media stuff, I am specifically saying that I serve my people, meaning the Black and African community, when we have frauds before us. Again, I always say, yeah, there's flaws, and many people we all have flaws. We all have flaws. That's expected. There's many people who are fraudulent. It's not expected, but we know that it exists. But again, as I can't go with Ms. Washington's code of ethics, because it says, don't warn your people about people who come before us, meaning to deceive us Just look at yourself. That's what she says. And that's what lots of people are saying. And lots of people are saying these things, and they're saying it because they don't want to see their superheroes. This is a conceptualization, just one of many. Fall. They will allow people to come in our communities and be frauds just to say, or just to see somebody who looks like them play the role of what they believe or what they've been taught that success is. I'm gonna get out of here, family. I appreciate for y'all who joined, and some of y'all got off, some of y'all stayed on, some of y'all came and picked up later. Make sure you go back and look at the entire video if you haven't, because I went over quite a few things to kind of build up this process to say, nah, family, it's not as simple as saying the sisters are hating Cheyenne Bryant. It's way more complex than that. Our sisters are doing the work, and there's many reasons why they feel the way they feel. Whether I agree with it wholeheartedly or not, I would say you cannot flatten or dismiss it as just hating. Blessings, peace, and power.
When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
If a generalized black woman is doing this and being this, that is that is irresponsible.
No,
when you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
Showing me,
black and proud. Claim your Africanness, black and proud.
I think that if
when you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
a page,
what is the status of people with half
I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
That's why I was laughing, because I am
claim your Africanness.
I'm not saying the framework doesn't do a thing, but
become a part of it.
We've been
embrace
forward to black men
become a part of it.
Being in the control. We
become a part of it.
Only
embrace it.
That those to me one of the best stories I've ever heard.
Embrace it. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind
that
back.
mental growth takes place. You can misled by leadership, for instance, that thinking you can consume.
When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you.